Hello everyone, and welcome back to Mr. Night Fear. I know many of you listen to these stories to help you fall asleep. So, before you get settled in, I'd love for you to leave a comment letting me know where you're listening from. And if you're enjoying the episodes, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. Now, let's get comfortable, relax, and begin. It was October 1st. That crisp autumn breeze was in the air, the kind that makes the leaves crunch just right under your boots. Fall had arrived, my favorite time of year. This was the first fall that my boyfriend, Ethan, and I were living together in our new home in Pine Hollow, Oregon. I wanted to do something sweet for him. So while he was at work, I decided to surprise him by decorating the house with fall and Halloween-themed stuff. I picked up a few things from the local Target and Michael's. Then I browsed some online listings, mostly Facebook Marketplace. I searched fall decorations, and one listing really stood out. It was just a picture of a big green plastic bin, filled with all sorts of autumn stuff. I clicked for details. It read, "Everything must go. Full bin of fall decorations, $20. Clearinghouse, check profile for more items. $20 for a full bin?" That sounded too good to pass up. I clicked the seller's profile. The guy's name was Cody. His profile was locked down, no friends, no info. The picture was a close-up of a gray trucker cap pulled low over someone's face. His cover photo was a blurry lake, nothing special. I scrolled through his other listings. It was a weird mix. A supposedly new iPhone for $700. Some women's jackets. Christmas lights. A dog crate. It felt random. Still, I messaged him, asking what kind of decorations were in the bin. He replied right away, all sorts. Table stuff. Outdoor stuff. Porch signs. Good mix. I told him I could come by that evening. He said he'd be home after work around 9 p.m. and sent the address. I looked it up on Google Street View. The house was in a small town about 30 minutes out. The area wasn't great. The kind of place where folks keep their doors locked during the day. Still, the house looked normal. Clean yard. 2 cars in the driveway in the image. Just to be safe, I asked my best friend, Lauren, to come with me. I picked her up, and we chatted on the drive. Once we exited the highway and entered the town of Greystone, she started cracking jokes about how sketchy it looked. And yeah, she wasn't wrong. The streets were dim, mostly lit by flickering old streetlights. A few boarded-up stores. Not exactly welcoming. As we got closer to the house, my phone buzzed in the cup holder. A message from Cody on Messenger, "When you get here, just come right in." I showed it to Lauren, and she raised her eyebrows. "Nope," she muttered. "We're ringing the bell." We pulled up. Strangely, there were no cars in the driveway. The place looked quiet. The blinds were drawn, but a faint glow from inside leaked through the slits. I texted him, "We're here. Can you come to the door?" We both stared at the house. Then, we saw the blinds shift. Someone had been watching us. Just a tiny movement, but we both caught it at the same time. And then, nothing. A few seconds later, the front door creaked open. Another message from Cody, "I'm at the door. You can come in." I was already uneasy, and Lauren looked stiff. We got out slowly and walked toward the porch. Before we reached it, I called out, "Cody?" No answer. Lauren whispered, "Let's leave." I tried again, louder. "Cody?" Still nothing. I turned to her. "Yeah, let's go." But just as we stepped back toward the car, a voice called out from the shadows, "Yeah, I'm here." Inside. We froze and looked toward the open door. A man was standing halfway behind it, like he was hiding. We couldn't see his full face, just part of his torso and an arm waving us in. Lauren and I exchanged a look. Cautiously, we stepped forward. He opened the door fully as we approached, then disappeared inside. We stepped into the house, but left the front door open. The smell hit us right away. That heavy, musty cotton scent like in old houses, but under it something sour and sharp. Like mold and meat. We heard fast, heavy footsteps, and his voice, deep and gravelly, call from another room, "It's over here." "Come on." Lauren clutched my arm. We stepped into the living room. It was dimly lit, with this faded pink carpet and furniture that looked like it hadn't moved in decades. But the smell in there was unbearable, like rot. In the middle of the room sat a red plastic bin with a green lid. Cody stood over it. This was the first time I got a proper look at him. He didn't smile. He didn't say hello. He just motioned toward the container. "Go ahead. Take a look." But I noticed something was off. The bin in the photo had been green. This one was red. And a completely different shape. I didn't move. "Can you open it?" I asked. He gave a dry chuckle. "Well, you're no fun." Lauren and I took a small step back. Then he ripped off the lid. A wave of something foul hit us stronger than before. I don't know what was in that bin. I didn't want to know. Without a word, Lauren grabbed my hand and tugged. We turned and bolted out the front door. I didn't look back until we were already in the car. The front door had been closed again. I don't know if he was watching us from behind the curtains, but we didn't wait to find out. We never saw what was inside that bin. But I'm sure it wasn't decorations. When I told Ethan everything, he asked for the address. I told him to forget it. Just forget all of it. Some deals really aren't worth it. He promised he wouldn't go, just wanted to look up the house. So, I gave him the address. The next day, he got home later than usual. He told me he'd stopped by the place. An older woman answered the door, and she insisted she lived there alone. But he knew I wasn't making it up. I showed him all the Facebook messages with the guy, including the address. We looked up the public property records for that home. Sure enough, the listed owner was a woman in her late 60s. It didn't make sense. Still doesn't. That whole thing creeped both of us out in a way we couldn't explain. Since then, I've made a rule when I buy something online, I never go to someone's house to pick it up. This all happened in 2019. I remember the year clearly because it was when I was living alone for the first time. I had just moved to a small apartment in Silver Pines, Oregon, for a temporary job. I was 22, fresh out of college, and excited for a little independence. My apartment was right in the downtown district, close to cafes and shops. I could walk to most places, but I also had my car for weekend getaways. The best part of living in Oregon? The trails. There were so many forest paths and state parks. I'd already explored a few, but one that had been on my list for a while was Witchwood State Park. People online always raved about it, especially the waterfalls. So, on a random Wednesday in October, I decided to go. The drive took just under an hour. The air was crisp, the leaves were changing colors, and the rain we'd gotten earlier that week made everything feel fresh and alive. I figured the middle of the week would mean fewer hikers. I wasn't wrong. When I got to the gravel parking area, there were only a couple of other cars there. I slung my backpack over my shoulder and headed out toward the main trail. The place was beautiful. Quiet. Peaceful. A soft mist hung between the trees, and the forest smelled like wet pine and earth. After about half a mile, I reached a spot called Blackwood Falls, a set of 3 waterfalls stacked along the cliffs. Some scenes from an old horror movie were filmed here back in the day, I remembered reading that somewhere. I sat on a big flat rock near the bottom fall, took a few photos, and just soaked it all in. That's when I saw her. There was a woman standing just off the trail, not too far from the tree line. She was watching me. Trying to be polite, I waved. She didn't wave back. She just turned and slowly walked deeper into the woods until the trees swallowed her up. I didn't think much of it at the time. It's not exactly weird to see someone else hiking. Maybe she didn't feel like talking. No big deal. I stood up and continued down the trail. The rocks near the waterfall were slick, so I avoided climbing too close. I hiked upward for another 10 minutes or so until I reached High Hollow Falls, a taller and more dramatic cascade. I found another dry spot to rest and snapped some more pictures. Then I saw her again. Same woman. Standing just off the trail, hidden among the trees. Still watching. This time, I didn't wave. I looked down at my phone, pretending to scroll, but after about 10 seconds, I couldn't help it, I glanced back up. She was gone. From what I could tell, she looked to be in her mid-50s. Her hair was a mix of gray and blonde, cut short and uneven. But she kept her distance, so it was hard to make out any details. I didn't see which direction she'd gone, but I made a mental note to keep heading the opposite way. Eventually, the trail led to an old covered bridge that crossed over a narrow gorge. I stopped again, this time just to take in the scenery. The bridge was charming in an eerie, faded kind of way. Wood planks creaked underfoot, and the beams above were laced with cobwebs. I filmed a short video and sipped from my water bottle. Then I turned back to look at the end of the bridge, the same side I had just crossed. There she was. Standing there. Watching me. I swear, I didn't hear her approach. I didn't see her before. It was like she appeared the moment I looked away. She wasn't smiling. Wasn't doing anything. Just standing, as if I had somehow done something to upset her. And honestly, I was starting to feel it, too, not fear exactly, but irritation. A weird, crawling kind of annoyance. Why was she following me? Last weekend, I decided to take a solo hike up Cedar Hollow Trail, just outside a little town called Maple Creek in upstate New York. It was one of those cool fall mornings, the kind where the fog hangs low and the ground feels soft from yesterday's rain. The air smelled like damp leaves and pine, and the only sound was the crunch of my boots on the dirt path. I had been hiking for about 45 minutes when I saw her again. The same woman I'd glimpsed twice already, older, gray hair in a tight bun, a long faded coat, standing on the bridge that overlooked the river bend. She wasn't moving. Just watching. I approached, trying to be polite. "Excuse me, ma'am?" I said gently. But she didn't respond. Instead, she turned and walked away fast. Way too fast for someone her age. Her steps were stiff, almost mechanical, but the speed? It was unnatural. For a moment, I wondered if she was disoriented or needed help, but something in my gut told me not to follow her. I leaned on the railing of the wooden bridge, breathing in the mist for a few minutes before deciding to head back down. It would take another 45 to get to the parking lot, and the sun was already beginning to dip behind the trees. A few minutes down the trail, I passed a younger woman walking her golden retriever. She smiled, and I figured I'd ask. "Hey, have you seen an older woman pass by? Gray hair, long coat?" She frowned and shook her head. "No, sorry. I haven't seen anyone else on this trail today." I chuckled awkwardly. "It's weird. I've seen the same woman 3 times now, she just sort of appears and stares at me." The woman laughed, though it was more nervous than amused. "That's really strange." Not wanting to come off as creepy, I wished her a good hike and kept going. But the rest of the walk down, I felt it, that prickly sense that someone might be watching from behind the trees. I kept glancing over my shoulder, half expecting to see her again. But I didn't. Just one more hiker passed me, gave me a friendly nod, and that was it. I made it back to my car with no problems. Later that evening, I met up with Emma, the girl I was seeing at the time. We went to Rusty Pine, our favorite little dive bar, grabbed some pumpkin spice relish, and caught the Yankees game on TV. I told her about the woman on the trail. She laughed, said it sounded like something out of a campfire story. Honestly, it did. That night, I went to bed like normal. I'm a deep sleeper, rarely wake up before my alarm. But something pulled me from sleep around 3 a.m. I was groggy, blinking at the dark ceiling. That's when I felt it. A presence. Heavy, cold, wrong. At the foot of my bed, a woman stood still. I froze. My chest felt like it caved in. She didn't move. She just stood there, gray hair, long coat, and that same blank stare. I screamed. Loud. I'm sure the neighbors heard, even through the closed windows. I scrambled up against the headboard, trying to put distance between me and whatever it was. Then, without a word, she turned and walked out of the room. Heart pounding, I flipped on the lamp and shouted, "Who's there?" Nothing. No footsteps. No movement. Just silence. I grabbed the pocket knife from my nightstand and went room to room, turning on every single light. I checked the closets, under the couch, behind the shower curtain. Nothing. I even checked the front door, it was still locked. I didn't know who else to call, so I called my dad. He picked up groggy and confused. I told him what happened, expecting, hoping, he'd say something reassuring. "You probably dreamed it," he mumbled. "You were half asleep. Your mind just filled in the gaps." He wasn't wrong, maybe. But it had felt real. The figure, the room, the air, it was all too clear to be just a dream. I mentioned how the woman looked exactly like the one from the trail. "That just proves it," he said. "Your brain used that image to build the dream. Happens all the time." Eventually, I managed to fall asleep again, but only after shoving my dresser in front of the bedroom door. 2 days later, my mom called. Her voice was quiet. She said her sister in Germany had passed away in her sleep. I didn't know her. My aunt had stayed overseas for decades, estranged from the family. When my mom got back from the funeral, she handed me the memorial card. My heart stopped. The woman's face, my aunt, was the same woman I saw in the woods. And the same one who stood at the foot of my bed. What do you think that means? Sorry to interrupt. If you're enjoying the story, let me know in the comments and tell me where you're watching from. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more. This story shook my whole family, especially because I told my dad everything, even the strange vision I had before we got the news about my aunt passing. I was raised Catholic but never really got into religion after my confirmation. Still, this experience sends a chill down my spine and makes me question what I truly believe in. My friend Jake and I have always been the kind to do dumb things together. We've been buddies since we were kids, and by the time we turned 21, we ended up roommates. We lived in Silver Springs, a small coastal town in Georgia where we grew up. It was the kind of town with its ups and downs, but mostly a decent place to grow up. Though, honestly, it got pretty dull once we hit our 20s. But that's beside the point. While living there, everyone knew about this creepy old house that stood out from the rest, looked like it was built in a completely different century. It had been abandoned forever. We and some friends liked to spin wild stories about its past. It was mid-October, and the whole town was in full Halloween mode. People were hitting haunted houses, corn mazes, all the usual spooky stuff. Jake and I thought it'd be fun to break into that creepy house one Friday night and explore. After work, we grabbed baseball bats to feel safer, stopped for some fast food and beers, and drove down to the house. We parked a good distance away, so no one would suspect anything. The houses in that neighborhood were pretty spread out, so each yard was big. That made it less likely someone would catch us wandering around. Each of us stuffed a couple beers into our backpacks. Not sure why we thought we'd drink inside an abandoned house, but whatever. We tucked our bats under our arms so it wouldn't be obvious we were carrying them. Quiet as we could, we walked down the dark street, whispering to each other. It was less than 5 minutes to the house. This part of the street was pitch black, no streetlights, and the house across the road was dark too. The only light came from a few houses farther away with their porch lights on. We switched on our flashlights. The front lawn was full of dirt patches and overgrown weeds. It looked like nobody had touched it in years. We snuck around to the backyard, figuring that's where we'd find an unlocked door. And wouldn't you know, the back door was wide open. No boards, no broken windows, the place looked abandoned, but not trashed. We stepped inside. Inside, the house felt smaller than it looked outside. There were a lot of rooms, but they were cramped, giving the place a maze-like feel. Jake wandered off into another room, and for a moment, I was alone. I heard him shout, "Hey, there's still furniture everywhere." "Yeah," I answered, "it's like they left in a hurry. This stuff looks ancient, like something out of my grandma's attic, but way older." I explored the first floor more and found a narrow hallway with several doors. I opened one to find a tiny bedroom. The bed took up nearly the whole room. I checked the dresser drawers, all empty or already gone through. Same with the closet. Everything left behind seemed like junk. Jake called out that he was heading upstairs. I told him to wait. We kept our voices low, just loud enough to hear. After checking the other cramped bedroom downstairs, I went back to the hallway. 2 doors remained, one led to a bathroom, and the last opened to a steep stairway going down to the basement. I thought, what the heck, and started down. Each step creaked loudly under my weight. Halfway down, I noticed a faint glow coming from below. I turned off my flashlight. The glow didn't go away. At that moment, I should have turned around like any sane person. But I don't do things normally. Probably the first to die in a horror movie. I kept descending, flashlight off. When I reached the bottom, I looked around. 2 tall candles flickered on a table, barely lighting the room. But what caught my eye first wasn't the candles. It was the rocking chair next to the table. It was moving. Someone sat in it, facing away from the stairs. All I could see was a hand resting on the arm of the chair. Panic hit me. I scrambled back up the stairs, trying to be as quiet as possible, each squeak making me flinch. Halfway up, I glanced down. The candlelight still glowed faintly. Near the top, one step creaked so loud I froze, teeth clenched tight. I reached the top, turned to close the door, but the basement was now pitch black. The thought of those candles going out sent a cold shiver down my spine. I shut the door quietly and tiptoed through the cramped house, looking for the stairs leading upstairs. At the bottom, I called out softly for Jake. No answer. I sighed and slowly climbed the stairs, calling his name again. Still nothing. By the time I reached the top, I was half expecting some prank. Jake, if you're trying to scare me, cut it out. There's someone in the basement. We need to get out now. That got him. He stepped out of a dark room and asked if I was serious. I said I'd explain outside but wasn't joking. We headed back downstairs together, less worried about being quiet now. All I wanted was out. When we passed the basement door in the hallway, we both froze. There, silhouetted in the dark, stood a man blocking the doorway. The time for sneaking was over. I kept whispering, "Just go," as we sprinted outside to the car. We made it in 30 seconds. I was already out of breath by the time we got in. I backed out and started driving us home. During the ride, I told Jake everything I'd seen. He kept shaking his head, saying, "Dude, what the hell?" Neither of us believed anyone legally lived there. But someone was definitely squatting in that basement. Who it was, we'll never know. Honestly, I don't want to know. And I never went near that street again. Sorry to interrupt. If you're enjoying the story, let me know in the comments and tell me where you're watching from. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more. My name is Chris. I live in a small town called Fairwood. It's quiet here. Folks say hello at the gas station. Kids still ride bikes after dark. I moved back after my mom passed. I was going through a lot. Anxiety. Sleepless nights. I thought being back home would help. I rented a small house at the edge of town. It had a crooked fence, squeaky floors, and a big oak tree in the yard. The rent was cheap, and the neighborhood was quiet. Too quiet sometimes. Out front, there was an old streetlight. It flickered on and off every night. The landlord said it was the city's problem. The city said it wasn't. So, it just stayed like that, buzzing and flickering. Every night. At first, I didn't mind. I actually liked the sound. It reminded me of my childhood. But after a while, something felt off. One night in October, things changed. It was cold. The kind of cold that seeps into your bones. I made some tea, curled up on the couch, and scrolled through old pictures on my phone. I found a photo of my mom and me from Halloween years ago. I smiled, but my chest hurt a little. Then I saw a light flicker through the curtain. I looked up. The streetlight. It was blinking again. But this time, it wasn't random. It had a pattern. 3 quick flashes. A pause. Then 3 more. I stared at it. My hand still holding the phone, now frozen. I got up slowly and peeked through the curtain. There was someone standing under the light. At first, I thought it was a neighbor. But this person was too still. Too quiet. Just standing there. Looking at my house. I closed the curtain fast. Maybe it was a trick of the light. Maybe I was just tired. I went back to the couch and tried to shake it off. I turned on the TV, but my mind was still stuck on that figure. 10 minutes passed. Then I heard a knock. Not at the front door. At the back. I jumped. No one uses the back door. It faces the woods. There's no path. Just trees and fog. I crept through the kitchen and peeked out. Nothing. But then I saw the porch light turn on by itself. It flickered, just like the streetlight. I backed away. Something wasn't right. I texted my friend Jake. "Hey, weird stuff happening. Think someone's outside." He replied fast. "Lock the doors. I'll call you." My phone rang. I picked up quick. "What do you mean someone's outside?" he asked. Before I could answer, I heard something. A soft tapping sound. From the front window. I froze. I turned my head slowly and saw movement behind the curtain. A shadow. Right there. Inches away. I whispered, "Jake, there's someone at the window." He told me not to move. He said he was getting in his car. Then, silence. No tapping. No light. Just dark. Until the TV turned off by itself. Then the lamp. Then everything. The house was dark. I stood there, holding my phone. Heart pounding. The only light now came from the streetlight outside. It was flashing again. 3 quick flashes. A pause. 3 more. And then, I heard my mom's voice. Not loud. Not clear. Just soft. Like a whisper through a wall. "Christopher." I dropped the phone. The voice came again. "Christopher, open the door." It sounded just like her. But I knew it couldn't be. I had buried her months ago. Still, I walked toward the door. Slowly. My hand reached for the knob. Then I stopped. The voice changed. It got deeper. Harsher. Open the door, boy. I stepped back. Then bang. The door shook. Once. Then again. I turned and ran to the bedroom. Locked the door. Hid in the closet. I stayed there. For what felt like hours. Jake arrived 15 minutes later. He banged on the front door, shouting my name. I ran out and opened it. He looked me over. Are you okay? What happened? I told him everything. He didn't laugh. He didn't say I imagined it. He said, "Man, you live on Willow Lane, right?" I nodded. Jake looked pale. My grandpa used to talk about a man who died on that street. Years ago. Said he would stand under the streetlight. Try to trick people into opening their doors. He'd sound like someone they loved. I stared at him, my hands still shaking. He looked at the streetlight. It wasn't flickering now. Just glowing soft and steady. That night, I stayed at Jake's place. I moved out 2 weeks later. Sometimes I drive past that house. The streetlight still flickers. Still blinks. 3 flashes. Pause. 3 more. I haven't been back. But sometimes, I still hear that voice. Christopher. Sorry to interrupt. If you're enjoying the story, let me know in the comments and tell me where you're watching from. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more. My name is Chris. I live in a quiet town called Willow Creek. It's small, just one grocery store, a diner, and lots of woods. Everyone knows everyone. Nothing bad ever really happens here. I moved back after my dad passed away. He left me the old house on Briar Street. It creaked when the wind blew. The paint was peeling. The floors made noise when you walked. Still, it felt like home. It was late October. The leaves were orange and red. The air smelled like rain and smoke from chimneys. Halloween was coming. Kids had already put pumpkins on their porches. One night, around 10 p.m., I was sitting in the living room. The wind outside was loud. The trees scratched against the windows. I was scrolling on my phone, trying to feel less alone. That's when I saw it. A light. It came from across the street. There's no house over there. Just an old shed. Empty. Abandoned. Everyone in town says it's been empty for years. But there was a soft yellow glow, like a lantern, in the window. I stood up. Walked to the front door. Looked out through the glass. The light was still there. Not flickering. Just steady. I felt a chill. I told myself it must be a streetlight. Or maybe someone parked there. But when I stepped outside, the air was cold and still. No cars. No people. Just the light. Then it went out. Just like that. I stared for a long time. Then I went back inside. I locked the door. The next night, the light came back. Same time. Same place. It stayed on for about 5 minutes. Then vanished. I tried to ignore it. But each night, it came back. Always at 10 p.m. One night, I decided to record it. I pointed my phone out the window and hit record. But when I watched the video later, there was nothing. Just darkness. No light. No sound. I started to wonder if I was losing my mind. Then things inside the house began to change. I'd find the kitchen drawer open. Lights flickering in the hallway. Once, my bedroom door slammed shut by itself. I blamed the wind. Or maybe I was too tired to think straight. But deep down, I knew something was off. One night, I left the house and walked across the street. I needed to know what was going on. The ground was wet. Leaves stuck to my shoes. The shed looked older up close. The wood was cracked. The windows covered in dust. Still, I saw the glow. Faint. Yellow. From inside. I opened the door. It creaked loudly. The air inside smelled like mold and something sour. Old tools hung from the walls. A broken chair sat in the corner. And on the floor, a candle. Still burning. My heart thudded. I stepped closer. The flame flickered. But there was no wax. No wick. Just light floating above the wood. Then I heard it. A soft whisper. It said my name. Chris. I turned around fast. No one was there. I ran. Back to my house. Locked every door. Closed every curtain. That night, I didn't sleep. The next morning, I called Sheriff Wallace. Told him what I saw. He came by. Checked the shed. Said it was empty. No candle. No signs of anyone. Just dust. He told me to get some rest. I tried. But that night, at 10 p.m., the light came back again. I didn't go near it. Instead, I stayed in bed, under the covers, flashlight in hand. Then something knocked. 3 times. Not on the door. On the window beside my bed. I sat up. Slowly. I live on the 2nd floor. No tree branches nearby. Nothing that could reach the glass. I didn't look. I just stayed still, listening. No more knocks. Just breathing. Slow. Heavy. Right outside. Then silence. I stayed in bed until morning. When I finally looked outside, there were wet footprints on the porch roof. Bare feet. I haven't seen the light since that night. But sometimes, I still hear the knock. And once, when I was brushing my teeth, I saw something behind me in the mirror. A face. Pale. Eyes too wide. Gone before I could turn around. I've tried to move away. But something always keeps me here. Like I need to stay. Like I'm part of whatever it is now. I don't tell many people. Most wouldn't believe me. But sometimes, when I'm sitting in bed, I feel like I'm being watched. And I think about that shed. That light. That whisper. What do you think it was? Have you ever seen something that shouldn't exist? My name is Chris. I live in a small town called Willow Creek. It's quiet here. Real quiet. Just woods, old houses, and one blinking streetlight on each road. People don't lock their doors. At least, they didn't. Not before last October. I was going through a hard time. My dad passed away last spring. After that, I moved into his old place on Lantern Road. It was a small house. Just 1 floor. The wood creaked when you walked, and the heater never worked right. But it felt like home. I worked the night shift as a deputy. Nothing ever really happened in Willow Creek. Sometimes a lost dog. A broken mailbox. That sort of thing. So I had time to think. Too much time. One night, near Halloween, I got a call. A neighbor said the old Wright house had lights on again. That was strange. The Wright house had been empty for years. No one wanted it. The roof sagged. The windows were dusty. It was the kind of place kids dared each other to run past. I remember going near it once when I was 10. I thought I heard someone whisper my name. But that night, someone saw light in the window. I drove over. The wind was strong. Leaves danced down the road. The streetlight near the house blinked, slow and steady. Like it was tired. I parked my cruiser and stepped out. The cold hit me hard. My breath came out white. I walked to the porch. My boots crunched on gravel. The front door was slightly open. I called out, "This is Deputy Chris. Anyone here?" No answer. The air smelled like wet wood and old paper. I pushed the door open. It made a low groan. Like it hadn't been moved in years. Inside, everything was still. Dust floated in the air like snow. The floor creaked under my weight. I walked in slowly. That's when I heard it. A click. Like a phone camera. But I didn't have my phone out. I froze. The light was on in the hallway. A weak, yellow glow. I didn't remember seeing any wires or electricity boxes around. That house wasn't even supposed to have power. I followed the light. At the end of the hall was a room. The door was wide open. Inside was an old desk and a small lamp. The lamp flickered. And there was something on the desk. A phone. One of those old flip phones from the early 2000s. Its screen lit up when I walked in. There was a message on it. "You saw me. Now I see you." I felt cold. Not outside cold. Inside cold. Like my bones were frozen. I picked up the phone. It was dead. No battery. But the message was still glowing. Then, the closet door behind me creaked open. I turned fast. Nothing there. Just a dark, empty closet. I backed out of the room. I was shaking. I didn't understand what was happening. I called dispatch on my radio. Static. Just static. Then another sound. The same click. Camera shutter. This time, behind me. I spun around. Still nothing. But the hallway light flickered harder now. The shadows on the walls moved even when I stood still. Something was wrong. I left the phone and rushed out of the house. Outside, the wind had stopped. The air felt heavier. The trees didn't move. Not even a little. And the streetlight? It was off. Just off. I got in my cruiser and sat there. Breathing hard. Trying to calm myself. Then, my phone buzzed. It was a message. From a blocked number. A picture. Of me. Standing in that hallway. Looking at the phone. I never took that picture. No one else was there. I drove away fast. Didn't stop until I got back to the station. I tried to tell the others. But nothing showed up on the phone anymore. The photo? Gone. The number? Gone. The next day, I went back to Lantern Road. The Wright House was boarded up again. No sign of me ever being there. No phone. No light. Just an old, quiet house. I haven't been the same since. Sometimes, at night, I hear a click behind me. I see a flash in the corner of my eye. But when I turn around, there's nothing there. No one believes me. Maybe you don't either. But ask yourself something. Have you ever felt like you were being watched? Have you ever heard a sound in an empty room? A click. A whisper. What do you think happened next? Would you go inside that house? Because now, I think the house remembers me. and I don't think it's done watching. My name is Chris. I live in a quiet town called Willowbend. We have one diner, a small gas station, and long roads lined with tall, whispering trees. Most folks know each other here. Not much happens. It's peaceful. But sometimes, peaceful places hide strange things. This story happened 2 years ago. I had just lost my mom. She passed away after a long illness. I didn't handle it well. I stopped talking to friends. I barely slept. Some nights, I just drove around town, listening to the wind and trying to feel normal again. That's how I ended up on Whisper Lane. Whisper Lane is on the edge of town. It's mostly empty now. The houses are old. Most are falling apart. People say they're haunted, but I never believed that stuff. I thought they were just stories told by bored kids. One night in October, close to Halloween, I was driving past Whisper Lane. The road was foggy. The streetlights were flickering, like they always did when it rained. That's when I saw it. A light. In one of the old houses. It wasn't a porch light. It looked like a lamp, deep inside the house. Warm and steady. I slowed down. Nobody had lived there for years. Still, I told myself maybe someone moved in. Maybe a traveler. Maybe a squatter. But as I passed, I saw something move in the window. Just a shadow. Quick. Like someone stepping back from the glass. I felt a cold chill run down my arms. I don't know why. I've seen shadows before. But this one, it felt different. I drove home, trying to shake it off. I told myself I imagined it. I had barely been eating. I wasn't sleeping. Maybe my mind was playing tricks. But the next night, I went back. Same time. Same house. The light was on again. And again, I saw something move in the window. This time, I parked. I sat in my truck for a long time. Just staring. The street was dead quiet. No wind. No bugs. No sound at all. Then, my phone lit up. It buzzed once. Unknown number. The message said, "You're not supposed to be here." I looked around. Nobody was near me. I checked the mirrors. I turned off the engine. My breath felt thick in my chest. Another message came through. "Go before it sees you." I jumped. Dropped the phone. I picked it up with shaking hands and opened the door. That was dumb, I know, but I had to see. I had to know. I took one step out. Then another. Then I heard it. A tapping sound. Tap, tap, tap. It was soft. Like fingers against glass. It came from the window of the house. The one with the light. I turned toward it. There was someone standing there. Tall. Still. No face. Just a shape. Like a man covered in smoke. I couldn't see eyes. But I felt like it was looking right at me. Then the light went out. I ran back to the truck. Slammed the door. Locked it. I didn't even check my phone. I drove straight home. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about the messages. About that shape in the window. About how quiet everything had been. The next day, I asked around town. I didn't tell anyone what I saw. Just asked about Whisper Lane. An older guy at the diner, Jerry, told me something strange. He said, "That house?" Yeah. Folks used to talk about it. Back in the 80s, a family lived there. Dad, Mom, 2 kids. One night, they all just vanished. Vanished? I asked. Yep. Dinner still on the table. Lights on. No signs of struggle. No goodbye notes. They just disappeared. People said the place felt off after that. That night, I didn't go back. But I kept getting messages. Always at the same time, around 9 p.m. Some said things like, "It's waiting. Don't open the door. Whisper Lane never forgets." I blocked the number. Changed my phone. But the messages still came. Sometimes, they were already on the phone when I woke up. No alerts. Just sitting there, waiting for me to see. I started having dreams. Of the window. Of the tapping. Of a soft voice saying my name over and over. Chris. 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 I told myself I was just grieving. That it was all in my head. But deep down, I knew it wasn't. The last time I went by that house, the light wasn't on. But the front door was open. Just a little. Just enough to make you wonder. I didn't stop. I don't go near that road anymore. Not since the dream where I woke up standing in front of that house. In the rain. Barefoot. Alone. I never found out who or what was inside. I don't want to know. Some places aren't haunted by ghosts. They're haunted by memories. Or maybe, by what's left when a place is forgotten for too long. I still think about that night. And sometimes, late at night, I still get messages. No number. Just 3 words. We see you. Sorry to interrupt. If you're enjoying the story, let me know in the comments and tell me where you're watching from. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more. My name is Chris Mallory. I'm a deputy in a small town called Hollow Creek, in upstate New York. Not much happens here. It's quiet. Cold in the fall. Leaves cover the roads. People wave when they drive past. The kind of place you'd think is safe. I moved back here last year after my wife passed. I couldn't stay in the city. Too many memories. Too much noise. Hollow Creek felt like peace. The house I rented sits at the edge of town. It's old. White paint peeling off the porch. Wind howls through the cracks. But it's mine. And it's quiet. Until October. It started small. The porch light flickered, even after I changed the bulb. My phone would buzz, but no message showed up. The living room would be cold in the morning, like someone had opened a window. But nothing was ever open. One night, I came home after a late shift. I parked out front. The sky was dark. Wind pushed dry leaves across the gravel. As I walked to the porch, I saw something from the corner of my eye. A face. In the upstairs window. I froze. It was just a glimpse. A pale shape. Eyes that didn't blink. I ran inside. Nothing. Upstairs was empty. The window was shut. But my gut knew something was wrong. I told myself it was grief. Maybe I was too tired. Maybe I missed my wife so much that I was seeing things. But then it happened again. A week later. Same time. I came home after midnight. The wind was louder that night. My phone kept glitching. The screen flickered, even when I tried to restart it. When I pulled into the driveway, I didn't want to look at the window. But I did. And she was there. A girl. Pale skin. Long black hair. Standing still. Looking out. No expression. I ran up, unlocked the door, and shouted, "Is anyone there?" Nothing. I searched the whole house. Every room. Every closet. No one. But something was different. On the nightstand in the guest room was an old, dusty doll. I'd never seen it before. Its eyes were cloudy. Its smile was crooked. I didn't like it. I put it in a box and shoved it into the garage. That night, I didn't sleep. The next day, I asked around. I went to the diner. I spoke to Mrs. Lang, who's lived in Hollow Creek for over 70 years. She got quiet when I told her what I saw. That house, she said, used to belong to the Ackley family. Back in the 60s. She looked out the window. There was a girl. Emma. She died there. Fell from the upstairs window. Folks said it was an accident. Others said she jumped. She paused. Some said she was pushed. I felt cold. Like the wind outside had slipped under my coat. After that, she whispered, people stopped renting the place. Strange things kept happening. Lights. Voices. That window. Always that window. I tried to ignore it. I told myself stories can't hurt you. That ghosts aren't real. But Hollow Creek doesn't forget. 2 nights later, I woke up at 3:13 a.m. The sound of a music box was playing. Soft. Just outside my bedroom. I got up. The hallway was dark. Cold. The song played slower now. Sadder. I followed it. Step by step. Down the stairs. Into the living room. And there she was. Emma. Standing by the front door. Holding the doll I had thrown into the garage. Its eyes glowed faint blue. Her hair covered part of her face. But I could see her mouth. She was smiling. The music stopped. And then she spoke. Why did you put me away? I couldn't move. My throat felt tight. My heart pounded in my ears. Then she was gone. No sound. No warning. Just gone. I left the house before sunrise. I stayed at the station that night. Slept on the old couch in the back office. The next morning, I drove to the house and opened the garage. The box was gone. The doll was sitting on the porch swing. Rocking. Slowly. Back and forth. I moved out 2 days later. Left the furniture. Left the clothes. I didn't care about the deposit. Now I live in a small apartment near the station. No windows facing the street. I keep the curtains closed. Always. Sometimes, though, I still hear music at night. Very faint. Like a lullaby drifting through the walls. And sometimes I see her. Not in person. But in reflections. In the corner of a screen when my webcam is off. In the dark glass of the microwave door. In the elevator mirror when I look away too fast. She's still there. Still waiting. Have you ever seen someone in a window that shouldn't have been there? What do you think she wants? Would you have stayed? My name is Ben Carter. I live in a small town called Coldwater in upstate New York. Not much happens here. We have one gas station, a diner that closes at 8, and a church that's older than anyone alive. After my dad passed away last winter, I moved back into his house. I thought being in a quiet place would help me heal. I was wrong. The house sits at the edge of town, near an old apple orchard. The trees haven't grown fruit in years. They look dead, like crooked arms reaching into the sky. I remember loving that orchard when I was a kid. My dad used to take me there every fall. But now, it feels different. Empty. Cold. The first strange thing happened 2 weeks after I moved in. It was a Thursday night. Cold wind was blowing through the trees. I had the porch light on and was reading by the fireplace. That's when I noticed something out the window. A small, blue light. Flickering. Deep in the orchard. At first, I thought it was someone's flashlight. Maybe kids messing around. But the light didn't move like a flashlight. It swayed. Slow and steady. Like it was hanging in the air. I stepped outside. The air smelled like wet dirt and dry leaves. The wind had stopped. Everything felt too quiet. I stared at the blue light for a long time. Then it vanished. The next night, it came back. Same place. Same glow. But this time, I noticed something else. There were footprints in the dirt. Small ones. Like a child's. They led from the orchard to the back of my house. But they stopped at the door. Like whoever made them just stood there, watching. I didn't sleep that night. A few days later, I heard scratching. It came from the basement. Long, slow scratches. Like nails dragging across wood. I went down there with a flashlight. Nothing. Just dust, cobwebs, and old boxes. But the scratching came back the next night. And the night after that. One morning, I found the basement door open. I never leave it open. The lock was broken. Something had snapped it from the inside. That's when I called the sheriff. He sent over Deputy Lane, a quiet guy a few years younger than me. He checked the house, walked the property, and told me what everyone says around here. This place, it has stories. He didn't say more. Just gave me a look. A kind of warning. I didn't want to believe any of it. I thought maybe grief was messing with my head. Maybe I was hearing things. Seeing things. But then I found the phone. It was sitting at the edge of the orchard. Half buried in leaves. A cracked, old smartphone. Dead screen. No charger could bring it back. But when I shook it, it buzzed. Just once. I opened it. One video was saved. No apps. No contacts. Just one video. It was dark and shaky. But I saw the orchard. I saw my house. And I heard crying. Soft. A child's voice. Then a whisper. Help me. The phone shut off. Wouldn't turn back on. That night, the blue light returned. But now, it was closer. I locked every door and window. I sat in the dark, holding a flashlight, waiting. Around 3 a.m., I heard tapping on the glass. 3 slow taps. Like someone with small fingers. I didn't look. The next morning, I found something on my porch. A drawing. Crayon on old paper. A child's drawing of a house. My house. And a figure standing at the window. The figure had no face. I drove into town, showed the sheriff. He just said, "You're not the first to find something like that. But most people don't stay long enough to see it twice." He told me about a girl who vanished near the orchard years ago. 8 years old. Never found. Folks said she used to play near the trees. Said she talked about the blue light man. That's what the town called it. Just a story. An old tale to scare kids. But it's not a story to me anymore. Last night, I woke up to music. Soft, twinkly music, like a music box. It was coming from the basement. I went down. The air was freezing. My breath fogged in front of me. The music was coming from behind an old shelf. I moved it. There was a hole in the wall. Freshly dug. And inside, a small wooden box. Inside that box? A shoe. A child's shoe. Dirty, worn. And next to it, a name tag. Emily. I left the box there. I haven't touched it since. But the music still plays sometimes. Soft and slow. Only at night. The blue light hasn't come back in 3 days. But the footprints did. This time, they didn't stop at the door. They went around the house. To the side window. To the basement stairs. I don't know what's going to happen next. I don't even know if I want to stay. But sometimes, at night, I think I hear a voice outside. A soft voice. Help me. Sorry to interrupt. If you're enjoying the story, let me know in the comments and tell me where you're watching from. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more. My name is Chris. I live in a small town called Maple Hollow. It's the kind of place where people wave when they drive by. We have one diner, one gas station, and lots of quiet. I moved here after my wife passed. I wanted space. Quiet. I found an old house on the edge of town. It sat near the woods. The porch was crooked. The windows were drafty. But it was cheap. And I didn't need much. The first few nights were peaceful. Cold air. Crickets. The sound of the wind in the trees. I liked it. Then the porch light started acting strange. It was an old bulb. I figured it was just dying. But I'd fix it, and it would flicker again. Sometimes it would go out completely. Then come back on in the middle of the night. One night, I woke up at 2 a.m. I don't know why. The house was quiet. I got up for water and passed by the front window. The porch light was on. Under it, I saw a shape. Not moving. Not walking. Just standing. It looked like a man. I froze. The figure didn't move. I blinked. Gone. I told myself it was my eyes playing tricks. I'd been tired. It was late. That's all. But the next night, I woke up again. Same time. Same light. And this time, the figure was closer. I didn't open the door. I didn't go outside. I just stood at the window, watching. My heart was beating fast. But nothing happened. The figure vanished after a few minutes. This went on for days. Always around 2 a.m. Always under the porch light. Each time, he was closer to the door. I asked the sheriff if anyone had been wandering around town. He shook his head. Not unless it's a deer in a hoodie, he said, laughing. I didn't laugh. I stopped sleeping. I started locking all the windows. I put a chair under the doorknob. But I didn't leave. I didn't want people thinking I was crazy. One night, I set up my phone to record the porch. I left it by the window. I wanted proof. The next morning, I checked the video. For the first few hours, there was nothing. Just the breeze. Leaves blowing by. Then, at exactly 2:01 a.m., the porch light flicked on. And there he was. Standing in the same spot. Motionless. The video was grainy. But I could see him clearly. Tall. Hooded. His face was blurry. Like the camera couldn't focus on it. Then, something made my chest tighten. At 2:04 a.m., he turned slowly and looked straight at the camera. He knew. I deleted the video. That day, I bought a new light. A brighter one. One that stayed on all night. It didn't help. That night, the light didn't turn on at all. At 2 a.m., I stood by the window. And I saw him again. He was at the bottom of the porch steps. Still. Silent. Then, 3 knocks on the door. I didn't breathe. I didn't move. Just silence. No footsteps. No walking away. Just silence. In the morning, I opened the door. There was nothing there. Except one thing. On the porch sat an old cell phone. A flip phone. It wasn't mine. It was scratched and dusty. I didn't pick it up. I used gloves. Took it inside and placed it on the kitchen counter. It didn't have a charger, and the battery was dead. I don't know why I kept it. That night, it turned on by itself. No light. No charger. No signal. Just a screen. And a message. Come outside. I turned it off. I threw it in a drawer. The next night, it was back on the porch. Same message. I buried it in the woods the next morning. But the porch light? It started turning on by itself again. Only at 2 a.m. I haven't seen him for a few nights now. But I know he's still out there. I feel it. The porch creaks sometimes when there's no wind. The knocks are softer now. But I still hear them. Last night, the porch light flickered. Then it turned red. Just for a second. I haven't opened the door. I don't plan to. But I wonder. What happens if I do? Sorry to interrupt. If you're enjoying the story, let me know in the comments and tell me where you're watching from. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more. My name is Jake. I live in a small town called Maple Hollow. It's quiet here. Folks leave their doors unlocked. Most people know each other. Nothing much happens. I moved back a few months ago. My mom passed away. The house she left me sits at the end of Willow Lane. It's old, with creaky floors and cold rooms. The porch light never worked, no matter how many bulbs I changed. At first, I liked the quiet. I needed it. After Mom's funeral, I wanted space. I wanted silence. But silence can turn into something else. Something heavy. It started with a feeling. I'd sit in the living room at night, the lights off, just the TV glow. And I'd feel it. That someone was watching me from outside. You know that weird chill you get when someone stares at your back? That's what it felt like. One night, I stood up and looked out the window. There was nothing. But the street light across from my house flickered. Just once. It did it again the next night. Then again. Always around midnight. Always when I was alone in the living room. I told myself it was old wiring. Maybe the town hadn't fixed it in years. But then one night, it didn't flicker. It shut off completely. I got up, walked to the window, and squinted into the dark. That's when I saw it. Someone was standing under the streetlight. A tall figure. Still. No movement. I stared. Tried to make out their face. But the light flicked on again. And just like that, he was gone. I stepped back, heart pounding. I didn't sleep much that night. The next day, I walked outside. I wanted to see if there were footprints. But the ground was dry. Nothing. I told my neighbor, Mr. Palmer. He's in his 70s, used to be the town electrician. I asked him about the streetlight. He looked at me a long time, then said, "That light's been doing that since the 90s. Since Laura disappeared." "Who's Laura?" I asked. "Girl who lived in your house. Vanished one night. No sign of her. People said she ran off. Others think something took her. That night, the wind howled. An autumn storm rolled in. The power blinked once, then stayed on. I kept all the lights in the house on. But just before midnight, the porch light, dead for weeks, flickered on. Then off again. Then the street light followed. I looked out. He was back. Same figure. Same spot. I turned away. Told myself not to look again. But curiosity got me. When I looked back, he was closer. Not under the streetlight anymore. Now he was on the sidewalk in front of my yard. Still no face. Just a dark coat. Too tall. Too still. I grabbed my phone. No signal. I tried the landline. Just static. Then I heard it. 3 slow knocks. Not on the front door. From the back of the house. I didn't move. I just stood in the middle of the living room, heart beating in my ears. Then, the streetlight outside went out completely. I heard my porch steps creak. But no one knocked at the front. I waited. Minutes passed. Then hours. Morning came. I opened the front door. There was no one there. But something was left behind. A single photo. Old. Black and white. Faded. A girl standing in front of the same house, my house. Written on the back, Laura. 1996. I took it to Mr. Palmer. He stared at it, then said, "That's her. That's the girl who vanished." I asked him, did she ever talk about someone watching her? He nodded. Said the streetlight man came every night. But we thought she was making it up. Kid stuff. I keep the photo in a drawer now. Haven't told anyone else. The streetlight still flickers. Sometimes I look. Most times, I don't. But when I do, he's there. Closer each time. I don't know what he wants. I don't know why me. But something tells me it's not over. Not yet. What do you think happened to Laura? Have you ever felt like someone was watching when no one should be there? Sorry to interrupt. If you're enjoying the story, let me know in the comments and tell me where you're watching from. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more. My name is Lauren. I live in a small town called Maple Creek. It's quiet here. Not much happens. People know each other. We wave. We smile. But sometimes, quiet towns hold quiet secrets. 3 months ago, my dad passed away. He had cancer. I moved back into my childhood home to take care of things. Just me and the house now. It's old, wooden, and creaks when the wind blows. The house is on the edge of town. Next to it is an old field that used to grow corn. Now it's just tall, dry grass. Past the field is a forest no one goes into anymore. People say it's cursed. I never believed that. It was late October. The air was cold. Leaves covered the yard. Every night, I'd make tea, sit in the kitchen, and listen to the wind. It helped me feel less alone. But then, I started hearing something else. It began with a soft tap 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 above my head. Just 3 slow taps. Always at the same time. 3:13 a.m. At first, I thought it was the pipes. Or maybe an animal in the attic. But when I went up there with a flashlight, I found nothing. Just boxes, dust, and one strange thing, a lamp. I didn't remember ever seeing it before. It was old. Metal. With a glass shade that looked cracked. But the bulb inside it glowed softly. I hadn't even plugged it in. I backed away and turned off the flashlight. The attic was dark again. But the lamp stayed on. I told myself it was a trick of the eyes. Or maybe my flashlight had hit something that looked like a glow. I left the attic and tried to sleep. But that night, I had a dream. In the dream, I was a little girl again. I was hiding in the attic. Someone was coming up the stairs. I could hear them breathing. I wanted to scream, but I couldn't. I woke up in a sweat. The next night, the tapping returned. I went upstairs again. The lamp was still there. Still glowing. But now, something else had changed. One of the boxes was open. Inside were pictures. Old family photos, but they weren't mine. The people in the photos looked like they were from the 1950s. A man, a woman, and a little boy. The boy looked scared in every photo. In one of them, he was standing next to the same lamp. I stared at it for a long time. Then, I noticed something behind the photo. A letter. It was handwritten, shaky. The paper was yellow and brittle. It said, "If you find this, please take the lamp away. It watches. It waits. It feeds on sadness. I tried to get rid of it, but it comes back. It always comes back." I dropped the letter and stepped back. The lamp flickered once. Then again. The air in the attic grew cold. I ran down the stairs, heart pounding. That night, I left the hallway light on. I couldn't sleep. At 3:13 a.m., the lamp turned on by itself. I know, because I saw the glow through the attic door. I called the local hardware store the next morning and asked if they knew anything about the house's past. The man on the phone was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "You're in the old Garrison place, right?" I said yes. He sighed. They had a boy. Name was Charlie. Disappeared in 1961. People searched the woods for weeks. Never found him. Some say he ran away. Others say the attic light turned on the night he vanished. And kept turning on. Every year. Same date. Same time. I didn't know what to say. That night, I decided to stay awake. I sat on the stairs, staring at the attic door. At 3:13 a.m., I heard the taps. Then, slowly, the glow of the lamp filled the cracks under the door. And then, a voice. Very soft. Very sad. "Lauren." I froze. It sounded like a child. "Are you still alone?" it asked. I couldn't answer. The light faded. Silence. I moved out the next day. Didn't pack much. Just the basics. The house is still there. Still quiet. People say the new owners never last long. Some say they hear tapping. Some see the lamp turn on by itself. No one knows what happened to Charlie. But I wonder sometimes. What if the lamp wasn't just haunted? What if it needed something? What if it's still waiting? I live in a small town called Pine Hollow. It's quiet here. The kind of place with one diner, one post office, and lots of trees. My name is Lauren. I moved back home after my mom passed away. I was her only child. She left me the old house near Maple Lane. It's a wooden house. Very old. The floor creaks when I walk. The wind whistles through the windows on cold nights. But it's home. It smells like cinnamon and old books. At first, I liked the peace. After years of busy city life, the silence felt good. But sometimes, silence can feel heavy. Especially at night. Every evening, I sat by the front window. I had a small reading lamp there. My mom always kept it on. She said it made the house feel safe. So, I did the same. One October night, I turned on the lamp, made tea, and curled up with a book. Outside, the wind blew hard. Leaves flew across the porch. I could hear them brushing the windows. Then the light flickered. Just once. I tapped the base. It stayed on. I smiled and went back to reading. Maybe it was nothing. But the next night, it happened again. This time, it flickered twice. I checked the bulb. It was new. I even changed the socket later. But every night around 8:13 p.m., it would flicker. Always in the same rhythm. Flick. Pause. Flick flick. I started recording it with my phone. Just to see if I was imagining things. But the pattern was always the same. One night, I didn't turn the lamp on. I was tired. I went straight to bed. That's when the knocks started. 3 slow knocks at the front door. I froze. No one knocks this late in Pine Hollow. I waited, holding my breath. Another 3 knocks. Harder this time. I tiptoed to the window and peeked out. No one was there. Just wind and shadows. The next morning, I checked the porch. No footprints. No signs anyone had been there. That day, I turned the lamp back on. No knocks that night. It became a habit. Every night, the lamp had to be on. I didn't understand why. But it felt important. Safe. I told my neighbor, Mr. Ellis. He's a retired sheriff. He's kind but always serious. When I told him about the flickers, his face changed. "Your mom ever tell you the story about the old woman who lived there before her?" he asked. I shook my head. She was named Mrs. Ruth. Lived alone after her son died. Said she saw someone outside her window every night. A man with no face. Just a shadow. She kept a lamp on so he wouldn't come close. I felt a chill go down my back. Mr. Ellis continued, "After she died, folks avoided the house. Until your mom moved in. I asked if my mom ever mentioned anything. He said she never spoke of it. But she always kept that lamp on." That night, I watched the lamp closely. 8:13 p.m. came. The flicker happened again. Flick. Pause. Flick flick. I whispered, "What do you want?" No answer. Just the wind. I started digging through my mom's things. Old journals, boxes, drawers. Finally, I found something in the attic. A letter. Folded many times. It was from my mom. It read, "If the lamp flickers, don't ignore it. It's not broken. He comes when it's dark. Keep the light on. Always." My hands shook as I read it. The next night, I left the lamp on again. But I made a mistake. I went outside to take the trash out. Just for a moment. When I came back, the lamp was off. I ran to the window. The bulb was still there. The plug was still in. But the switch was off. I didn't turn it off. My heart pounded. I reached for it. Just as I did, I saw something move behind me. In the reflection of the glass. A shadow. Tall. Still. Standing behind me. I spun around. Nothing there. The house was cold. Too cold. I turned the lamp back on. The warmth returned. Since then, I never let it go off. Not for a second. Even during storms, I keep backup power just for that lamp. Sometimes, I still hear soft knocks. Sometimes, I see the flicker. And sometimes, I feel watched. I don't know what it is. A ghost? A curse? Something older? But I do know this. My mother wasn't crazy. And neither was Mrs. Ruth. Some things need light to stay away. So now I ask you, have you ever felt a chill when a light went out? Ever seen a shadow move when no one was there? Because if you have, you might understand why I keep that little lamp in my window. Even now. Even when I sleep. It's always on. Just in case. I moved to Waverly Lane in early November. The air was cold, and the sky always looked gray. I needed a quiet place. My wife had passed 6 months ago, and I couldn't stay in our old home anymore. The town was small. Just one grocery store, a diner, and a gas station. People smiled politely, but no one really talked. That was fine with me. My new house was at the very end of Waverly Lane. It was old, with wooden floors that creaked at night. The porch light flickered even after I changed the bulb. But the rent was cheap, and the view of the woods out back was peaceful. The first few nights were quiet. I'd sit in the living room with a blanket, drink tea, and scroll through old photos on my phone. Sometimes I'd cry. Sometimes I'd just stare at the tree swaying outside. One night, around 2 a.m., I heard a knock. It was soft. Just one. Then silence. I sat up. Who knocks at 2 in the morning? I went to the door and looked through the peephole. No one was there. I stepped outside. Cold wind brushed my face, and the porch light flickered again. I stood there for a minute, listening. Nothing. Just the sound of dry leaves rustling down the road. The next night, it happened again. A single knock. No one outside. I started to feel uneasy. I told myself it was probably just the wind or maybe a tree branch hitting the house. But it didn't feel like that. That third night, I couldn't sleep. I stayed up, sitting by the window. The street light on the corner blinked every few seconds. The rest of the street was still. Then I saw it. A figure. Standing under the streetlight. It looked like a man, tall and still, but I couldn't see his face. I blinked. He was gone. I rushed outside, but the road was empty. Just fog rolling in through the trees. I didn't tell anyone. Who would believe me? The next day, I found something strange. A small stone on my porch. Smooth, round, and dark gray. It hadn't been there before. I picked it up. It felt warm, like it had been sitting in the sun. But it was freezing out. That night, I heard whispering. It came from the hallway. Soft, like someone murmuring just out of earshot. I walked slowly down the hall, turning on lights as I went. No one was there. I tried to go back to sleep, but the whispers didn't stop. They were just there, low, constant, impossible to understand. I started leaving all the lights on. It helped a little. But the moment I turned off the last lamp, I felt it again. The presence. Not something I could see. Just something watching. I went to the sheriff's office to ask about the house. Sheriff Maynard was an older man, kind but tired-looking. When I mentioned my address, he paused. That place used to belong to the Wilson family, he said. Old man Wilson went missing back in '94. Never found. Folks say the house never felt right after that. I asked if anyone else had lived there. Not for long, he replied. People move in, then they leave. Back home, I sat with that information. It didn't explain the knocking. Or the whispers. Or the figure under the light. One night, I recorded everything on my phone. I left it in the hallway while I tried to sleep. In the morning, I played it back. At first, it was just silence. Then footsteps. Slow, steady ones. Then a voice. A whisper, close to the mic. It said, "You shouldn't be here." I dropped the phone. My hands were shaking. I'd been alone in that house. No one had come in. All the doors were locked. The windows were closed. I packed a bag. I couldn't stay another night. But before I left, I had to know. I went out back, to the edge of the woods. The fog was thicker there. I saw a small path I hadn't noticed before. It curved between the trees, leading deeper into the forest. And there, at the end of the path, I saw a stone circle. Just like the one I found on my porch. Inside the circle was a single wooden chair, broken in half. Tied to the chair was a strip of cloth. It looked old. Faded red. Like dried blood. I ran. Back to my car, back down Waverly Lane, past the blinking streetlight and the whispering trees. I left that town behind. I didn't even stop to look in the mirror. Now, when I try to sleep, I still hear the knocking. Just one, soft knock. Sometimes I wake up and find a stone on the floor beside my bed. I moved states. Changed my number. Threw away the phone. But somehow, it still knows where I am. Sorry to interrupt. If you're enjoying the story, let me know in the comments and tell me where you're watching from. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more. I moved to Maple Hollow after the divorce. It was a quiet town with big trees and friendly neighbors. The kind of place where people waved from their porches and left pies on your doorstep. I needed the peace. After everything I'd been through, I just wanted to be somewhere still. Somewhere normal. The house I rented was small, old, but cozy. It had wooden floors that creaked when I walked and a porch swing that moved on its own when the wind got strong. I liked it, though. It felt like a place where I could breathe again. There was a house across the street that always caught my eye. It looked empty. The yard was overgrown, the windows were dusty, and the mailbox hung open like a broken jaw. But every night, the porch light came on. Just the porch light. Nothing else. No cars ever pulled into the driveway. No people came or went. The curtains never moved. But every single night around sunset, click, the porch light would turn on. At first, I didn't think much of it. Maybe someone set it on a timer. Maybe an old man lived there and just didn't like company. But then I noticed something that didn't sit right. Sometimes, the porch light would flicker. Not like a bulb going out, but like Morse code. A pattern. A pulse. It would blink 3 times. Then pause. Then once. Then pause. Then again, 3 times. I told myself I was imagining it. I even laughed it off. But once I noticed, I couldn't stop watching. Every night, same pattern. 3. Pause. 1. Pause. 3. One night, I decided to walk over. Just to satisfy my curiosity. I figured if I saw an old fuse box or a motion sensor, I could move on. It was chilly out. One of those fall nights where the cold sneaks under your jacket and the leaves crunch louder than usual. As I stepped onto the sidewalk, the wind picked up. I smelled something faint. Like old paper. Or burned wires. I stood at the edge of the yard, staring up at the porch. The light blinked. 3. Pause. 1. Pause. 3. I didn't go up the steps. I don't know why. My legs just stopped moving. Something about the silence around that house felt wrong. The wind didn't touch the grass here. Even the trees didn't sway. I turned around and went back home. Locked the door behind me. Pulled the curtains shut. That night, I had a dream. In it, I was standing in the window, watching the porch across the street. The light was blinking faster now. Almost panicked. The pattern had changed. It blinked 5 times. Then stopped. Then again. I turned away in the dream, but there was someone standing in my hallway. Not moving. Just watching. I woke up in a cold sweat. When I looked out the window, the porch light was off. For the first time since I moved in. That scared me more than anything. The next morning, I asked around. An older woman walking her dog told me that house? Been empty for years. Old man used to live there. Died in '92. No one's bought it since. But the light? I asked. She squinted across the street. What light? I didn't know what to say. I stopped watching the porch for a while. I kept my curtains closed. I tried to focus on work, on therapy, on healing. But one night, just before bed, I peeked. The light was back. And this time, there was someone standing under it. A tall man. Dressed in dark clothes. Still as a statue. I froze. My hand still holding the curtain. He didn't move. Didn't wave. Just stood there. His head slightly tilted like he was listening to something far away. I shut the curtain fast. Didn't sleep that night. The next day, I went to the police station. Asked if they could check it out. The officer on duty, Officer Riley, gave me a tired look. That house again? You've had calls before? I asked. He nodded slowly. Every few years. Someone new moves in. Notices the light. Says they see a man standing on the porch. We check. It's always empty. What do you think it is? He scratched his chin. Don't know. Some say it's just bad wiring. Others think it's something else. I went home feeling worse. That night, the porch light blinked in a different pattern. 4. Pause. 2. Pause. 1. I didn't sleep. By morning, I was convinced it meant something. A message. I searched online. Morse code. Binary. Nothing made sense. That night, the pattern changed again. And the man was back. But this time, he wasn't on the porch. He was standing on the sidewalk. Closer to my house. Just standing there. I didn't move. I didn't breathe. I just watched from the crack between my curtains. Then he lifted his hand and pointed at me. I closed the curtain. Turned on all the lights. Sat in the middle of the living room floor until the sun came up. When I finally dared to look, he was gone. The porch light, too. I haven't seen it since. But some nights, I still dream about that blinking. 3. 1. 3. And the feeling that someone is standing just beyond the glass. Watching. Waiting. Mill Creek Road was quiet most nights. Just a stretch of broken pavement lined with tall pines and old mailboxes, some rusted, some still painted by hand. The houses here sat far back from the road, hidden behind trees and fences that had seen better days. I grew up here. My name's Officer Mark Harlan. I've worked the night shift in our town of Coldwater, New York, for nearly 10 years. Nothing much ever happens here. Until one fall evening, one that I still can't explain. It was late October. The wind was cold, and brown leaves blew across the road like whispers. I was driving my patrol car, sipping gas station coffee, when I saw it. A light. A soft, white glow, right above the creek bridge at the end of Mill Creek Road. It didn't belong there. No street lamp, no house nearby. Just woods and that old bridge. At first, I thought it was a trick of the fog. Maybe headlights through the trees. But it stayed still. Floating. I pulled over. When I got out of the car, the cold air hit hard. I walked toward the bridge, my boots crunching on gravel. The light didn't move. It just hovered, like it was waiting. The closer I got, the more I felt it. That pressure in the air. Like something watching you. Not with anger. Just waiting. Then the light blinked out. No sound. Just silence. Deep and strange. Even the crickets had gone quiet. I stood there for a long time. My radio crackled, but I didn't answer it. I just stared into the trees, heart beating hard. Something about that light felt wrong. But also, sad. Like it didn't want to hurt me. Just to be seen. I went home that morning and couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about it. That glow. That feeling. Like the air was thick with something unspoken. Over the next few nights, I drove by again. Sometimes, the light was there. Sometimes not. It never moved. It never made a sound. But every time I saw it, I felt that same weight in my chest. I finally told my neighbor, Sarah. She had lived here her whole life. Widowed. Quiet. Always left her porch light on, even at midnight. When I mentioned the light, she didn't look surprised. "You're not the first," she said softly. "Years ago, a girl drowned under that bridge. Her name was Lily. She was only 16. Her boyfriend left her there one night. Drunk. Scared. She slipped. They never found her body." I didn't say anything. Just nodded. Sarah looked at me, her eyes tired but kind. She was wearing a white dress. That night, I went back. This time, I parked farther away and walked the last quarter-mile in silence. I left the flashlight off. The moon was full, and the wind was still. When I reached the bridge, I saw her. A girl. Standing at the center of the bridge. Pale. Barefoot. Long dark hair. A white dress, wet and clinging to her frame. She didn't look at me. Just stared into the water. Her hands hung by her sides. I wanted to speak, but the words wouldn't come. My mouth was dry. My fingers numb. Then she stepped forward. Right over the edge. Into the air. And vanished. No splash. No sound. Just gone. I ran to the spot. Looked down. Nothing but water below, moving slow and black. When I got home, I called in sick. The next day, I looked through old case files. Found her name. Lily Marsh. Died in 1984. A missing person report. No body ever recovered. I kept this quiet for a while. I didn't want to be the guy who chased ghosts. But something in me couldn't let it go. One night, I brought flowers. I laid them on the bridge where she had stood. And for a while, the light didn't come back. Weeks passed. Life returned to normal. Cold water stayed quiet. I slept better. Until last week. A teenager from the high school went missing. Her car was found near the creek. Her name was Melissa. 17. A white hoodie was all they found on the bank. It was raining that night. I drove to the bridge again. No light. Just fog. But the feeling was back. Heavy. Cold. Watching. I don't know if it's Lily. Or something else. But I know the bridge wants to be remembered. And I think, sometimes, it asks for more. I still leave flowers there. Even now. I don't know if it helps, but I hope it does. I grew up in a quiet town called Brent Hollow, just outside of Vermont's border. It was the kind of place with white fences, rustling trees, and old houses that creaked even when no one was inside. I moved back last fall, after my dad passed away. I didn't have a choice. The house was his, and the bills in the city were too much. The house on Willow Street had always felt cold. Even when the heat was on, the air had a stillness to it. Like it was waiting. The neighbors told me the cold came from old pipes. But I knew better. I remembered the strange nights from when I was a kid. The quiet tapping sounds at the back door. The way the lights sometimes flickered even when the power didn't go out. But I had no other option. So I moved in. It was early October. The leaves were turning. The wind howled more than I remembered. One night, after a long day of unpacking, I sat on the porch with a blanket and some tea. The sky was dark. No moon. The only light came from the dim yellow street lamp outside. That's when I heard it. Tap. 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 It came from the back door. I froze. I hadn't told anyone I was back in town. Not even my old friends. And it was nearly midnight. I slowly stood up and walked around the side of the house. My boots crunched on the gravel path. I didn't call out. I just listened. Nothing. I reached the backyard. The motion light flicked on. But there was no one there. Just the back door. Closed. Locked. I stared at it for a while. Then went back inside, locked everything again, and went to bed. But I didn't sleep. The next day, I visited Sheriff Thomas, an old friend of my dad's. I asked if there had been any reports of prowlers. He shook his head. You know this town, Jake. Nobody locks their doors until Halloween rolls around. I nodded but didn't feel better. That night, the taps came again. Tap. 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 Same time. Same door. This time, I turned on the backyard light from inside. Looked through the curtain. No one. But there was something new. 3 lines scratched into the wooden frame beside the door. Deep. Fresh. I stepped back. The next day, I went to the hardware store and bought a camera. One of those simple motion-activated ones. I mounted it near the back door. When night came, I sat in the living room, lights off, just listening. Tap. 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 I didn't move. In the morning, I checked the footage. The camera showed the yard. The trees. The wind blowing through fallen leaves. But at midnight, the footage glitched. For 15 seconds, the video froze. When it resumed, there were 3 more scratches on the doorframe. I took the footage to Sheriff Thomas. He watched it twice, then turned to me. You sure you're not stressed? I mean, after everything with your dad? I didn't blame him. I hadn't been sleeping much. The house was old. Maybe I was just on edge. But I knew it wasn't in my head. 2 nights later, things got worse. I was lying in bed. The house was silent. Then, I heard a voice. It wasn't loud. Just a whisper. It came from downstairs. I sat up and listened. Nothing. Then tap. 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 I got out of bed and grabbed my flashlight. My hands were shaking. I crept downstairs and stood at the bottom, listening. Again tap. 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 I turned the corner into the kitchen. The door was wide open. Wind blew in, cold and sharp. My breath fogged the air. I stepped outside. The camera was still there. The light stayed off. And then, something passed in front of me. Not a person. Not an animal. Just a shadow. Thin. Tall. Wrong. It slipped into the woods behind the house. I ran back in, slammed the door, and locked every bolt I had. I called Sheriff Thomas again the next morning. He came by. Inspected the door. The camera. I don't see any signs of forced entry, he said. I showed him the footage. Same thing. A glitch at midnight. Then, the door was just open. I don't know what to tell you, he said. Maybe get some rest. Stay with a friend for a while. I nodded. But I didn't leave. That night, I stayed in the living room. With the lights on. With my flashlight in hand. Midnight came. And this time, there was no tapping. No wind. Just silence. Then, the TV flicked on by itself. Static. White noise. A figure appeared in the screen's glow. Not in the house. Behind me. I turned fast. No one. But when I looked back at the screen, I saw my backyard. Live feed. The tall shadow stood there. Not moving. Just watching. I unplugged the TV. Sat in silence. Waited for sunrise. I moved out the next week. Rented a place in town. Never went back. Sometimes, I still get calls from the town's utilities office. Apparently the lights at Willow Street keep flicking on and off, even though the power's been shut off for months. I haven't told anyone the full story. Not until now. So if you ever pass through Brent Hollow, and you hear 3 taps at your back door, don't open it. Don't check the camera. Just pretend you didn't hear anything. Because once you notice it, it notices you. My name is Chris. I've lived in Pine Hollow, Oregon my whole life. It's a quiet town. One of those places where the trees outnumber people, and you can still hear the wind in your ears when you walk home at night. I work nights as a deputy. Nothing big usually happens here. A loose dog. A drunk guy sleeping in his car. That's about it. But one night last November, that changed. It had rained all day. That kind of soft, steady rain that makes the road shine under the streetlights. By 9 p.m., a thick fog rolled in. I could barely see a few feet ahead. I was doing my usual rounds. Driving slow. Radio humming quietly. That's when I saw her. She was standing near the old train signal house just off Miller Road, past the bend. A young girl. Maybe 12 or 13. Pale skin. White dress. No jacket. No shoes. At first, I thought it was a prank or maybe a runaway. I pulled over, rolled down the window. "You okay?" I asked. She didn't answer. She just turned and walked toward the trees behind the building. I got out of the car, flashlight in hand. The air smelled like wet leaves and old metal. The beam of my light caught her white dress as she slipped into the trees. "Wait!" I shouted, jogging after her. But when I reached the edge of the woods, she was gone. No footprints. Just wet grass and thick fog swallowing everything in front of me. I radioed it in. Told dispatch I saw a girl out by Miller Road. They sent another unit, but neither of us found anything. No missing kid reports either. I couldn't shake it, though. Something about her felt wrong. Not dangerous. Just out of place. Like she didn't belong in the world I was standing in. A week passed. One night, I was reviewing body cam footage in the office. I was curious. I wanted to see if the camera picked her up near the signal house. At first, nothing. Just fog and my voice. Then, at exactly 9:41 p.m., there she was. In the distance. Standing still. But here's the part that chilled me, her face was blurred. Like the lens refused to focus on her. And as I stepped out of the car in the footage, she turned toward the camera. That blur moved with her. Followed her head like it was alive. I paused it there. For a long time. After that, I started dreaming about her. Always in the fog. Always watching. One night I had a dream where I was a kid again, riding my bike near the old school. The fog came, and I saw her on the swings. She looked right at me and whispered something I couldn't hear. I woke up sweating. I didn't tell anyone. Who would believe me? But the next week, a call came in. An old woman said she saw a child standing in her yard at night. Said the girl was wearing white and staring up at her window. I asked for the address. Miller Road. I drove out immediately. The fog was back that night too. I pulled up to the house. The woman met me at the door, shaking. Said the girl had vanished the moment she flipped on the porch light. I walked around back. My boots sank into the wet leaves. Everything was silent. Still. Then I heard it. A voice. So soft, it could have been wind. Come find me. I turned. There, near the tree line, stood the girl. She wasn't moving. Just staring. This time, I didn't chase her. I took one step toward her and she vanished. Like she was never there at all. The next morning, I went back in daylight. I found a small shoe half buried in the mud. It was old. Worn. Looked like it hadn't been touched in decades. I brought it to the station. Nobody claimed it. Later that day, I asked around. Talked to a few older locals. A retired teacher, Ms. Lacey, said the signal house used to be near the path kids took home in the 70s. She remembered a girl who disappeared on a foggy November night. Her name was Clara Hayes. She was never found. Her photo matched what I saw. Same hair. Same white dress. I still drive by the signal house sometimes. Especially when the fog rolls in. And every now and then, I see her. In the corner of my eye. Watching. I don't stop anymore. But I always wonder what she wanted. Was she lost? Was she waiting for someone to find her? Or was she trying to pull someone else into the fog with her? I haven't dreamed of her lately. But sometimes I still hear whispers outside my window at night. Soft. Like a child's voice in the wind. Have you ever seen someone who wasn't supposed to be there? Someone who felt more like a memory than a person? What do you think Clara wanted? Hey everyone! I put a lot of effort and heart into creating these videos just for you. If you're enjoying the content, I'd love to hear from you. Drop a quick comment below and let me know where you're watching from and what time it is for you right now. Your support means the world to me, and it keeps me motivated to bring more awesome videos your way. I grew up in a quiet town in northern Pennsylvania. A place where people left their doors unlocked and knew each other's dogs by name. My name's Chris. I've been a deputy here for almost 12 years. This story happened in late October, just before Halloween. The leaves were turning, the air was cold, and the whole town smelled like wood smoke and wet earth. It was the kind of fall you see in postcards. But that night? That night felt different. I had the night shift, patrolling the back roads and checking on a few older residents who lived alone. Nothing unusual. Around 11 p.m., I was driving down a winding road that leads to Miller's Bend, a dead-end stretch surrounded by woods. There's nothing out there anymore. Just a couple of rundown houses, one burned down last year, and a single streetlight at the very end of the road. That light has been broken for years, but the county never bothered fixing it. As I approached the bend, something strange happened. The streetlight flickered on. I slowed the cruiser. That light hadn't worked in at least 5 years. I remember because we used to joke about it on the force, how it stood like a ghost watching over nothing. I stopped the car and rolled down the window. The night was still. No wind. Just that faint smell of cold leaves and something else, something metallic, like rust or blood. I turned off the engine. The light buzzed softly above the trees. It flickered again. And then I saw her. A girl standing directly under the streetlight. Barefoot. Wearing a thin white dress. Her hair hung wet and long, like she had just climbed out of a lake. She wasn't looking at me, just staring down the road, away from the car. I got out. I called to her. "Miss? Are you okay?" No response. I stepped closer, one hand resting on my belt. The gravel crunched under my boots. The moment I crossed into the light, she vanished. Just gone. There was no sound. No wind. Not even a breeze. I stood there in that pool of yellow light, trying to make sense of what I'd just seen. I walked around, checked the ditch, looked toward the woods. Nothing. Not even footprints. Back in the cruiser, I radioed dispatch. Told them I thought I saw someone, maybe a runaway. They said no one had been reported missing. Still, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. The next night, I went back. Same time. Same spot. The light was off again. I sat in my cruiser, windows down, watching. Around 11:17, it flickered back on. And there she was, same girl, same spot, same blank stare. But this time, she turned. She looked right at me. Her eyes were wrong. No whites, just a deep, endless black like open water at night. I tried to get out, but the door wouldn't budge. It was like something was holding it shut. She raised her hand slowly and pointed toward me. Then the light blew out with a loud pop, and everything went dark. The door flung open on its own, nearly throwing me onto the road. I scrambled to my feet, flashlight in hand, sweeping it wildly across the bend. But there was nothing. Not a trace of her. Not even disturbed leaves. I didn't sleep that night. I just sat in my kitchen, lights on, holding a cup of cold coffee I never drank. A few days later, I told an old resident named Mrs. Darrow about what I saw. She lived near the bend her whole life. Her hands shook when I told her. She said, that light was cursed. Years ago, a girl disappeared right there under it. She was walking home from school. Never made it. They say her spirit gets trapped on cold nights, looking for help, but no one ever helps her. I asked her what the girl's name was. Clara. Clara Madsen. I went digging through old records. And sure enough, there it was. Clara Madsen. Disappeared 1979. Never found. Since that night, I've seen her 3 more times. Always under that streetlight. Always around the same time. Always in silence. She never moves. Never speaks. Just stares. Sometimes I wonder if she's trying to tell me something. Or maybe warn me. Other times, I think she's waiting for someone else. I haven't told anyone on the force. They'd think I'm losing it. But I know what I saw. And every time I pass Miller's Bend, I look up at that streetlight. It's still broken. But sometimes, just sometimes, it flickers. I used to work the night shift as a deputy in a town called Coldwater. It's one of those small towns where everyone knows everyone and nothing ever really happens. At least, that's what we told ourselves. The streets were quiet after 10 p.m. Most people went to bed early. The only sound came from the wind rustling through the trees and the hum of old streetlights. I took comfort in the routine. Drive down Main Street. Check the gas station. Circle past the school. That night started like any other. It was early October. The air was cold, and leaves crunched under my boots when I stepped outside the station. I remember the wind had a bite to it. You could smell the change in season. The kind of smell that makes you feel both calm and a little uneasy. My shift started at 10 p.m. I grabbed my thermos of coffee and headed out in the cruiser. I drove through the usual spots. Everything looked normal. Until I turned down Birch Lane. There was a streetlight on that road that had been flickering for weeks. It stood near an old, empty lot. People said a house used to be there before it burned down years ago. As I passed it, something caught my eye. A man was standing directly under the flickering light. He wasn't moving. Just standing there. His face was in shadow. His hands hung loose by his sides. He looked tall. Maybe 6'4". Thin. At first, I thought he might be drunk. Or lost. I slowed down and rolled down my window. "Hey there," I called out. "Everything all right?" He didn't respond. I parked and got out of the car. My boots crunched over broken asphalt. The air smelled like damp leaves and something faint like burnt wood. I took a few steps closer. The man didn't move. "Sir?" I asked. "Do you need help?" He slowly turned his head. Not his body. Just his head. Even in the flickering light, I could tell something was wrong with his face. It wasn't right. It looked off. Like it wasn't finished. No eyes. No nose. Just smooth, pale skin. I froze. The wind picked up. The light above us buzzed louder and flickered faster. Then it went out. Darkness. I grabbed my flashlight and shined it ahead. But he was gone. I stepped around the pole, heart pounding, scanning the lot. Nothing. Just the empty field and the black road behind me. I got back in the cruiser. Locked the doors. I didn't write a report. Who would believe me? The next night, I told myself it was a trick of the light. Maybe I was just tired. But I avoided Birch Lane anyway. For a while, everything went back to normal. The weather got colder. Halloween came and went. Then one night, I got a call. A woman on the edge of town reported someone standing outside her house under the streetlight. She said he hadn't moved for over an hour. I asked her what he looked like. "All I can see is his shape," she whispered. "He's tall. And he's just standing there. Watching." I got there 10 minutes later. Her house was on a quiet road. 2 streetlights lit the corner. One of them flickered. And under it, he was there. Again. Same figure. Same stillness. I didn't get out this time. I sat in the car and watched. He didn't move. Then, the light went out. And he vanished. That was the last time I saw him. But over the years, others have told stories. A man standing under a flickering streetlight. Always tall. Always still. Never showing his face. Some say it's a ghost from the house that burned down. Others think it's something older, something that doesn't belong here. I don't know what it is. But sometimes, when I can't sleep, I drive through town. I check the lights. And I swear, some nights, I see a shadow standing still. Just for a second. And I keep driving. I moved to Willow Creek to start over. It was a quiet little town, the kind where people still waved to each other from their porches. I'd just gone through a rough divorce and needed a place that didn't remind me of anything. Willow Creek felt like a clean slate. My house sat on a dead-end street, tucked between rows of maple trees. Every night, the same old streetlight flickered just outside my bedroom window. It buzzed sometimes, too, like it couldn't decide whether to stay on or go out. I told myself I'd get used to it. The nights were cold. The wind made the trees creak, and the wooden floors inside groaned like they were still settling. At first, those sounds made it hard to sleep. But over time, they became normal. Familiar. Except for one night. I woke up around 3 a.m. for no reason at all. The room was still and dark, but that buzzing from the streetlight pulled me toward the window. I got up and peeked through the curtain. There was a man standing under the light. He didn't move. Didn't look around. Just stood there. Hands at his sides. His face was hard to see, but he looked tall, too tall. I watched for a minute, then shook it off. Maybe it was a neighbor. Maybe I was just tired. I went back to bed, told myself not to overthink it. The next night, he was there again. Same spot. Same stillness. This time, I stayed at the window a little longer. The wind pushed against the house. The light buzzed and flickered above him. But the man didn't move, not even once. It felt wrong, like watching a statue breathe. The third night, I decided to call the local police. Just to be safe. Officer Daniels showed up within 10 minutes. Nice guy, maybe in his 50s. Wore glasses and carried a big flashlight. I don't see anyone, he said after a quick walk around. Probably just a drifter passing through. Happens sometimes. But I knew what I saw. I didn't sleep much that night. The next morning, I noticed something strange. On my front steps, there were footprints. Just one set. Bare feet. The prints stopped right at my door. I didn't have neighbors close enough for it to be a joke. And I never heard anything during the night. No knocks. No voices. That evening, I sat near the window, waiting. Around 3 a.m., he returned. He didn't walk up. He just appeared. 1 second the street was empty, and the next, he was there. Standing still under the buzzing light. Only this time, he looked up at me. I froze. I couldn't see his eyes, just shadows where his face should have been. But I felt like he could see straight into me. Like he knew exactly who I was, what I feared, what I'd lost. The light above him flickered harder now. Buzzed louder. And for just a second, I thought I saw him smile. I stepped back from the window, heart pounding. That night, I didn't sleep at all. The next day, I installed a motion camera near the front door. I needed proof. Something to make it feel real, because it felt too strange to explain to anyone. That night, I waited again. 3 a.m. came. I peeked out. And there he was. But this time, he was closer. Not under the light. Not at the edge of the road. He was on the porch. Staring at the camera. When I looked at the footage the next morning, my stomach turned. The file was there, time-stamped and everything. But the screen was all static. Like the camera had shut down the moment he got close. I checked the door. More footprints. No damage. No sound. Just there. Every night after that, it was the same. He came closer. Sometimes I'd hear soft tapping at the glass. One night I swore I heard him whisper my name. Not loud. Just enough to reach under my skin. I started keeping lights on. Moved into the guest room. But nothing helped. Eventually, I called Officer Daniels again. I begged him to check the neighborhood late at night. "I'll do a few rounds," he said. "But maybe it's stress. You've been through a lot. Minds play tricks." I understood why he thought that. But I wasn't imagining this. The next night, Daniels parked at the corner of my street. I watched from my window, a cup of coffee in hand, trying to stay calm. And right at 3 a.m., it happened. The man appeared. Not near me this time, he was standing behind Officer Daniels' cruiser. The lights on the car flickered once and went dark. Daniels didn't seem to notice. I shouted from my porch, waved my arms, but he didn't look up. The man just stood there behind him. Then he was gone. Like a blink. No sound. No steps. Just gone. The next day, Daniels didn't return my calls. I heard he went home sick. His wife said he'd been quiet all day. Looked pale. Like he'd seen something and didn't want to admit it. He transferred out of Willow Creek 2 weeks later. I don't look out the window anymore. Sometimes I hear the streetlight buzz. Sometimes the floor creaks when it shouldn't. And sometimes, I swear I hear soft breathing just outside the door. But I never check. I don't want to know. Do you? What do you think I would have seen if I'd opened the door? Have you ever looked out your window and wished you hadn't? Hey everyone! I put a lot of effort and heart into creating these videos just for you. If you're enjoying the content, I'd love to hear from you. Drop a quick comment below and let me know where you're watching from and what time it is for you right now. Your support means the world to me, and it keeps me motivated to bring more awesome videos your way. I used to work night shifts at a small motel just outside Cold Creek, Indiana. The kind of place where not much ever happened. People came and went, mostly truckers or couples passing through. It was quiet, lonely, and a little boring. But for me, that was perfect. I had just gone through a rough breakup. 7 years together, then one day, she just left. No real reason, no goodbye. I wasn't sleeping well after that. I didn't want to be around people, so the night job helped. It gave me space. The motel was old. It had 12 rooms, creaky floors, and an office with a buzzing fluorescent light. In winter, the wind would whistle through the broken seals on the windows. Some nights, I could barely feel my fingers. But I liked the peace. I liked the cold. One night in late November, a man checked in just before midnight. He looked tired, pale, wearing an old coat with buttons missing. He didn't say much. Just gave me a name, David, and paid in cash. I gave him the key to room 6. He didn't take any bags. About an hour later, I was flipping through an old mystery novel behind the front desk when I heard the radio. It came through the intercom we used to monitor the rooms in case anyone needed help. Each room had a little emergency speaker, and mine was set to listen. I didn't think much of it at first. Maybe the guy had turned the radio on to sleep. But the sound wasn't music. It was talking. A soft, crackly voice. It kept repeating the same sentence over and over. "He's in the room." I frowned. Turned the volume down. Thought maybe it was a weird broadcast. Some late-night drama show. But it didn't stop. "He's in the room. He's in the room." It was slow. Calm. Almost like a whisper. But the way the voice said it, it gave me chills. I picked up the phone and dialed room 6. No answer. I tried again. Nothing. I didn't want to go knock. I told myself it was probably just the guest playing a tape or messing with me. But after a few minutes, I grabbed my flashlight and walked over. The air outside was cold and still. The gravel crunched under my boots. Room 6 had a yellow porch light that flickered, casting long shadows on the pavement. I knocked. No response. I knocked again, louder. "Sir? Everything okay in there?" Nothing. I unlocked the door and stepped inside. The room was empty. The bed was untouched. Lights off. No suitcase, no sign anyone had ever been in there. But the old radio on the nightstand? It was on. And it was still whispering. "He's in the room." I turned it off and backed out, locking the door behind me. My heart was racing. I checked the logbook. David hadn't signed a last name. Just David. I called the number he gave at check-in. Disconnected. I went back to the office and watched the cameras. Nothing. No sign of him leaving. No car in the lot. No one walking down the road. It didn't make sense. The next morning, I told the manager. He laughed and said the place had old ghosts and that I needed more sleep. I didn't laugh. That night, I left room 6 vacant. Didn't even clean it. Just locked the door and stayed behind the front desk. Around 2:45 a.m., I heard the radio again. But this time, it wasn't through the intercom. It was right behind me. I spun around. There was nothing there. Just the front desk, the clock ticking on the wall, and the sound, soft and scratchy, coming from the little walkie we kept on the counter. I hadn't turned it on. No one had touched it. "He's in the room," it said again. And then, silence. I unplugged everything in the office. Turned off the intercom. Shut off the power to room 6 completely. The next few nights were normal. No guests in room 6. No whispers. No strange check-ins. But something was off in that room. You could feel it. The air was heavier. The smell was strange, like wet concrete and old wood. A week later, a woman checked in. She asked for a quiet room. Said she was driving cross-country after a funeral. Looked like she hadn't slept in days. I hesitated but gave her room 7. Not room 6. Never room 6. But that night, around 3 a.m., she came to the front desk shaking. "Do you have someone staying next to me?" she asked. "No, ma'am," I said. "Room 6 is empty." "I heard someone talking through the wall," she said. "A man. He kept saying the same thing, like a chant." I couldn't sleep. "What was he saying?" I asked, though I already knew. She looked at me, eyes wide. "He said, he's in the room." I comped her stay and told her to switch rooms. She left instead. A few months later, the motel changed hands. New owners. Fresh paint. Room 6 got turned into a storage closet. They don't know what happened there. I still work nights, just at a different place now. I don't listen to radios anymore. I unplug them if they're in the room. And sometimes, when it's late and quiet, I still hear it. Not through a speaker. Just in my head. He's in the room. My name is Ethan. I used to be a night officer in the town of Silver Grove, a quiet little place tucked between wooded hills in northern Illinois. Back then, I worked the midnight shift. Most nights were boring. Just empty streets, the sound of wind through pine trees, and the occasional call about a raccoon in someone's garage. But something strange happened during the winter of 2021. And I've never told anyone. Until now. It started on a cold January night. There was snow everywhere. Thick and heavy. The roads were quiet. The streetlights flickered like they always did after a storm. Around 2:15 a.m., I saw a small red light blinking near the edge of town. There's an old signal house out there, used to be part of the train system. But the tracks are long gone. The place has been abandoned for years. Still, that light bothered me. It was too regular. Too steady. Like someone had placed it there on purpose. I radioed dispatch. Got a blinking light by the old switch station. Gonna take a look. They didn't respond right away. Static buzzed in my ear for several seconds before the voice finally came through. Copy that. Stay safe, Ethan. The air outside was bitter cold. My boots crunched on the snow as I made my way toward the signal house. The red light blinked from a second-story window. The building looked just as I remembered, small, wooden, and falling apart. The roof sagged in the middle. The door was still locked, but when I pushed, it creaked open anyway. Inside, it smelled like mold and rust. The wooden stairs groaned under my weight. I climbed slowly. I don't know why I didn't just leave. Maybe I was too curious. Maybe I was too tired to think clearly. At the top, I found the room with the blinking light. But there was no device. No radio. Nothing modern. Just a desk. A cracked window. A rusty old lamp with a red bulb, unplugged. And a notebook. I picked it up. The first page had a date, January 17, 1996. That was almost 30 years ago. The pages were filled with handwritten notes. Logs, like a train dispatcher would keep. But the entries got weird after a while. One read. The man with no face stood by the tracks again, waving. Another said, tried to ignore the knocking. It came from inside the walls tonight. I kept reading. My fingers were shaking. The last entry was short. He told me to light the red lamp when the next one comes. I heard something then. A thud. From downstairs. I froze. Another thud. Heavier. Closer. Then a voice. Low. Gravelly. Ethan. I turned to the stairs. No one was there. But I knew I hadn't imagined it. My name. It was spoken clearly. I backed out of the room, notebook still in my hand. I stepped slowly down the stairs, listening. My heart was pounding. As I reached the front door, I saw something outside the window. A man. No, not a man. Something standing where the tracks used to be. Tall. Motionless. Wearing what looked like a railroad uniform. But the face. It was smooth. Blank. Like wet clay. I shut the door fast. Locked it. Ran to my car. I didn't even look back. I drove straight to the station. Didn't report it. Didn't say a word. Just sat in the break room with my coffee, staring at the wall until morning. I kept the notebook. I still have it. Sometimes I read the entries, even though I know I shouldn't. Because ever since that night, I've been hearing knocks. Not just at work. At home. In my walls. 3 slow knocks. Always between 2 and 3 a.m. A few weeks ago, I saw the red light again. Blinking in my backyard. I live miles from that signal house. I know what you're thinking. Maybe it's stress. Maybe I imagined it. But I know what I saw. I know what I heard. And here's the part that really keeps me up. The last page of the notebook had a name. Written in shaky handwriting. Just one name. Mine. Hey everyone. I put a lot of effort and heart into creating these videos just for you. If you're enjoying the content, I'd love to hear from you. Drop a quick comment below and let me know where you're watching from and what time it is for you right now. Your support means the world to me, and it keeps me motivated to bring more awesome videos your way. I moved to Silver Hollow to get away from the noise. The city wore me down. After my divorce, I needed somewhere quiet, somewhere small. I found this old rental on the edge of Hollow Creek Road. Just me and my dog, Riley. It was a peaceful place. A small porch. A little garden. And woods that stretched behind the house, full of tall trees that swayed when the wind blew through. The town only had one gas station, a diner, and a small sheriff's office. That's where I started working part-time. Night shifts mostly. The locals were kind, though quiet. They kept to themselves. They had strange habits, like locking their windows at exactly 9 p.m., no matter the weather. They never talked about it, but you could feel something hanging in the air when the sun went down. Like the town held its breath. I didn't pay much attention at first. I figured it was just an old town tradition. That changed on a Thursday in late October. It was cold that night. Real cold. The kind of cold that sticks to your bones. I had the late shift, but the radio was dead quiet. Around 11:30 p.m., I drove down Hollow Creek Road just to kill time. That's when I noticed something strange. One of the streetlights was on. That might not sound odd, but the thing is, there are no working streetlights on Hollow Creek Road. They were all disconnected after a storm years ago. I remembered that because the realtor even joked about it when I moved in. But there it was. A single yellow light. Flickering softly. I slowed down and parked beneath it. Riley sat up in the passenger seat and let out a low growl. He almost never growled. I looked up at the light. It buzzed faintly. I got out and stood under it. That's when I noticed something even stranger. There was a trail of muddy footprints. Bare feet. No shoes. They started a few feet from the light and led straight into the woods. I called out, "Hello? You all right out there?" No answer. I clicked on my flashlight and followed the prints a little way in. The trees creaked in the wind. The ground smelled damp, like wet leaves and old soil. Every crunch under my boots felt too loud. Then I heard something ahead. A soft laugh. It didn't sound playful. It sounded hollow. Like it was coming through a wall. I stopped. Riley stayed by the car, watching the trees. I turned around and walked back to the cruiser. The footprints were gone. Just gone. I checked the road. Still dry. Still cold. But the air felt heavier now, like the night itself was leaning in to listen. I got back in the car and radioed the station. No answer. I tried again. Static. I looked back at the light. It was off. Only darkness now. I drove home, thinking maybe I was just tired. Maybe my mind was playing tricks on me. But Riley wouldn't stop staring out the back window. The next night, I didn't take the main road to the station. I took the long way. But when I passed Hollow Creek Road, that same light was on again. Same flicker. Same yellow glow. I didn't stop this time. I just kept driving. A few days later, I came home to find muddy footprints on my porch. Bare feet. Same as before. They led up to the front door, then vanished. No prints going back. Just one direction in. Riley barked at the door all night. I didn't sleep. I asked around the next morning. Most people just shook their heads. One older man at the diner finally spoke up. His name was Jerry. "Don't follow the light," he said. "That's how it finds you." I asked what he meant. He looked out the window and whispered, "It shows up to the curious. To the lonely. It pretends to be harmless, but it watches. If you follow it too far, you don't come back." He wouldn't say anything else. That night, I stayed inside. I locked all the doors. I didn't even look outside. Around midnight, my porch light came on by itself. It flickered. Just once. Then I heard soft footsteps on the wood. Slow and steady. Riley whimpered. He crawled under the table. I didn't move. I didn't breathe. A shadow passed by the window. It paused. I felt it. Not saw. Felt. Like something was thinking just outside. Like it knew I was frozen in place. Then, silence. In the morning, the prints were there again. This time, they led all around the house. Circling. It's been quiet since then. The light on Hollow Creek Road still comes on some nights. I don't drive that way anymore. But I think whatever it is, it remembers me. And sometimes, when I close my eyes at night, I hear that soft laugh again. Just outside the window. It's a quiet town. Just one gas station, a diner, and a row of houses that all look the same when the snow falls. I had only been on the job 6 months. Most nights were peaceful. Just checking locks, watching for deer, and listening to old country radio. But that night? That night was different. It was late January. The kind of cold that makes your breath sting. I was parked near the old train depot. They shut it down years ago after the tracks froze and cracked. Kids sometimes snuck in there to film TikToks or whatever. But that night, it looked empty. Silent. Like a place forgotten by time. I was scrolling through my phone when I noticed something move in the rearview mirror. It was just a shadow. Quick. Near the window of the depot. I paused the music and rolled the window down. Nothing. Just the sound of wind and a loose metal sign clinking somewhere in the dark. I turned on the spotlight and scanned the building. That's when I saw her. A girl. Maybe 12 or 13. Standing still in the corner window, staring out. Her face was pale, and her dark hair hung wet against her shoulders. She didn't blink. Didn't move. I got out of the car. Hey! I called, stepping into the snow. You okay in there? She didn't answer. Just stood there. Watching. I crunched through the snow toward the depot. The windows were frosted and cracked. I cupped my hands to the glass. Nothing. The girl was gone. Confused, I circled around the side. That's when I saw the door open just a crack. I pulled my flashlight and stepped inside. The air was thick. It smelled like wet wood and old paint. My boots echoed on the dusty floor. Hello? I called. No answer. I moved slowly, the beam of my flashlight cutting through the dark. The place was empty. No footprints. No girl. I started to back out when something cold brushed my neck. I spun around. Nothing. I laughed nervously. Just my imagination. Maybe a draft from the broken windows. I told myself that, over and over. Back in the car, I made a note in the log and drove off. But the whole night, I kept glancing at the mirror. I don't know why. I just felt, watched. I couldn't sleep the next morning. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her face. Pale. Blank. Like she wasn't really there at all. Later that week, I asked around town. No one reported a missing girl. No one recognized the description. But old Miss Talbot, who ran the diner, said something strange. She told me that back in the 80s, a girl named Lacey had vanished near the depot. Said she was waiting for her dad, who worked the night train. He never showed. They found her backpack near the tracks. But not her. People said she used to press her face against the glass, waiting. Some still say she does. I thought it was just a ghost story. A way for folks to scare tourists. But 2 nights later, I was back on shift. Same route. Same cold. Same silence. Around midnight, I passed the depot again. Just glanced, out of habit. And there she was. Standing in the same window. Same wet hair. Same empty eyes. Only this time, she was smiling. I slammed the brakes. My heart was racing. I grabbed the flashlight and ran toward the building. The door was locked this time. I kicked it open and searched every inch of the place. Nothing. I stood there, shaking, light flicking across the rotting walls. And then I saw it. Words, written in frost on the inside of the glass. Why didn't you help me? I backed away. Fast. I didn't stop running until I was back in the cruiser, door locked, engine running. I didn't report it. Who would believe me? But I stopped patrolling near the depot after that. Told the chief it gave me the creeps. He laughed. Called me soft. Maybe I am. But last week, I heard something that chilled me to my bones. Another officer, new guy named Darren, was out on patrol. He saw her too. Said she walked across the road in front of his car. Slow. Like she wanted him to follow. When he tried, she was gone. But when he got home, there was frost on his bedroom mirror. Just one word. Soon. I don't know what she wants. Or who she's waiting for. But every winter, when the wind gets quiet and the night feels too still, I think about that pale face in the glass. And I keep my curtains closed. Just in case she's looking in. My name is Officer Jake Miller. I've lived in the town of Coldwater, New York, my whole life. It's a quiet place. Lots of trees. Lots of silence. People here leave their doors unlocked. Or at least, they used to. Last fall, something happened that changed that. It started with a 911 call on a Tuesday night. I was on the late shift. The dispatcher said it came from a house on Willow Lane. It was strange, because that house, number 17, was supposed to be empty. The Martins had moved out almost 2 years ago. I remember pulling up around 11:30 p.m. The air was cold. Leaves scratched across the pavement in the wind. The porch light was flickering, like it hadn't been changed in years. But that wasn't the strangest part. Inside the house, all the lights were on. I stepped onto the porch. The boards creaked under my boots. I knocked on the door and called out. Coldwater Police. Anyone home? No answer. I tried the handle. It turned easily. The house smelled like damp wood and something sweet like old flowers. There were no sounds. No footsteps. No voices. But the TV in the living room was on. It showed static. Just white noise and flickering light. I radioed in and said I was going to take a look around. Room by room, I checked everything. Nothing seemed broken. No signs of a break-in. But the back bedroom door was closed. And there was light coming from under it. I pushed it open slowly. The room was empty. The light was coming from an old lamp on the nightstand. It looked out of place, like it belonged to a different decade. Next to the lamp was a photograph. It showed a little girl with long brown hair. She was standing in front of the very house I was in. I picked up the photo. The second I touched it, the lamp flickered. Then the TV in the other room shut off by itself. I froze. That's when I heard it. A whisper. Not loud. Not angry. Just soft. like someone saying my name from very far away. Jake. I turned fast, but no one was there. I checked the hallway. Empty. Then I heard it again. Jake. This time, it was coming from upstairs. I didn't want to go up. My gut told me to leave. But I've worn the badge too long to ignore things like this. So I climbed the stairs. The second floor was darker. Colder. The hallway light wouldn't turn on. I had to use my flashlight. There were only 2 rooms up there. One was locked. The other was open. In the open room, everything was covered in white sheets. Furniture, mirrors, boxes, like the house had been frozen in time. I stepped closer and pulled the sheet off a mirror. And that's when I saw her. Not in the room. In the reflection. A little girl, standing just behind me. Pale skin. Long brown hair. The same girl from the photo. I spun around. Nothing. Just an empty room and the sound of my own heartbeat. I turned back to the mirror. The reflection was still showing her. But she wasn't standing still anymore. She was reaching toward me. My chest tightened. I backed away. The mirror cracked, just a hairline fracture down the middle. I ran. Down the stairs. Out the door. Into the cold air. My hands were shaking when I got back in the patrol car. I told dispatch no one was inside, but I didn't feel right about it. They sent another officer the next morning. He said the place was locked up. No lights. No signs of life. But I knew what I saw. Later, I looked up old records. In 1993, a little girl named Emily Martin died in that house. She was 9. Fell down the stairs while her parents were out. They say it was an accident. But neighbors claimed she used to talk about a shadow in the mirror. She said it whispered to her. The Martins moved out a few months after she died. No one has lived there since. Now when I drive past Willow Lane, I notice the porch light still flickers. Even though no one's been there in years. And sometimes, late at night, I see the shape of a little girl in the upstairs window. Just standing there. Watching. I've stopped responding to calls from that house. We mark them as false alarms now. But they still come in always late. Always quiet. Sometimes, I wonder if she's still waiting for someone. Or maybe warning us. I don't know. But if you ever find yourself in Coldwater, and you pass Willow Lane, don't stop. And whatever you do, don't look in the upstairs window. What do you think she wanted from me? Have you ever seen something in a mirror that wasn't really there? My name is Daniel, and I work night patrol in a small town called Cold Creek, somewhere in upstate New York. You probably haven't heard of it. It's just woods, fog, and winding roads no one cares about unless they get lost in them. I've lived here all my life. My dad was the sheriff before me. He died last winter, heart attack in his sleep. Since then, it's just been me and the quiet. I haven't slept well since. Cold Creek gets real cold in November. The air smells like wet leaves. Streetlights buzz, and the wind always sounds like it's whispering through the trees. Nothing much ever happens here. That's why what I saw last week still messes with me. It was a Friday night. Just after midnight. I was driving along Miller's Bend, close to the old trailhead that leads down to Sycamore Creek. The fog was thick. I had to keep my high beams on just to see a few feet ahead. The radio was off. I like the silence sometimes. Helps me think. That's when I saw her. A girl, standing by the side of the road. She was barefoot. Wearing a pale dress, like one of those white nightgowns from old movies. Her hair was soaked and clinging to her face. She looked maybe 8 or 9. Too young to be out here alone. I slowed down and rolled my window down. "You okay, sweetheart?" I called out. She didn't answer. She just turned slowly and looked right at me. Her eyes were wrong. I don't know how else to say it. Not scared. Not blank. Just wrong. Like they were staring through me, like she knew something I didn't. I parked the car and stepped out. The cold hit me fast, biting through my jacket. I called out again. "Where are your parents? Are you lost?" Still nothing. She turned and walked into the woods, barefoot on wet leaves like it didn't bother her. I hesitated. Every part of me said don't follow. But I did. I had to. What if she was in danger? I left my flashlight in the car, so I used my phone. The beam was weak, but it showed just enough: the narrow trail, the trees closing in, the wet crunch of leaves under my boots. I followed her for maybe 5 minutes. The trail curved and dipped. I lost sight of her a few times, but she always showed up again just ahead. Not running. Just walking. The trail led to the edge of Sycamore Creek. That's when she stopped. She stood by the water, staring into it like she was looking for something. I took a few careful steps toward her. "Hey," I said gently. "Let me help. You're not in trouble." She turned to face me again. And this time, she spoke. "He's still down there." Her voice was soft. Barely a whisper. But clear. "Who?" I asked, confused. She pointed to the creek. "He won't come out." I told him not to go in, but he didn't listen. I stepped closer to the edge. The creek was shallow, but fast. The water moved like it had somewhere to be. "There's no one here," I said. "Are you sure?" When I turned around, she was gone. No sound. No splash. Just gone. I stood frozen. My heart was pounding. The fog rolled in thicker. I felt the hair on the back of my neck stand up. Then I heard a splash. It came from the water. Not small. Big. Like someone falling in. I pointed my light toward it, hands shaking. Nothing. Just water and rocks and dark shapes I couldn't make out. I called it in, told dispatch I'd check back in 10. I waited. Nothing happened. No movement. No voices. Just the wind and the water. Eventually, I made my way back to the car. The girl was never found. No reports of missing kids. No footprints. No evidence. But the next morning, I came back with the sheriff's deputy. We searched the creek bed. We found something. An old rusted bicycle tangled in weeds. And a small, waterlogged shoe caught between 2 rocks. Not new. Not from last night. Years old. We sent it off for testing, but I already knew. There's a local story. Old-timers talk about a boy who drowned in Sycamore Creek 30 years ago. He and his sister were playing too close to the edge during a storm. The water pulled him in. They never found the body. They say the sister never spoke again. She was taken out of town. No one saw her after that. I think the girl I saw was her. Or maybe not her exactly, but something that wears her face. I still drive by that road. I always slow down at Miller's Bend. Sometimes I swear I see footprints just past the guardrail. Barefoot. Small. Heading toward the trees. I haven't told many people this story. It sounds crazy, I know. But something about that night changed me. I leave my high beams on more now. I don't stop for people in white dresses. and I never walked too close to the water's edge. But sometimes, late at night, I still hear her voice in my head. He's still down there. And I wonder if she's still waiting. Or worse, if she wants someone else to join him. I moved to Wren Hollow after my divorce. It was a small town in upstate New York. Cold winds swept through the trees in fall. The leaves turned red early, and the nights felt longer than they should. I rented a tiny house at the edge of town. It sat near the woods, just off a narrow road with a broken streetlight that flickered all night. The landlord told me no one had lived there for years. I didn't ask why. I just needed a quiet place to breathe. I was dealing with too much. The divorce. The job I'd lost. The silence of being alone again. My name is Chris, and back then, I was barely holding it together. The house was old but clean. It had wood floors that creaked, a small kitchen, and a narrow staircase that led to 2 bedrooms. There was also a crawlspace door in the hallway upstairs. It was small, square, and locked with an old latch. I didn't like that door. The first few nights were fine. I watched TV, read books, and tried to sleep through the strange animal sounds outside. But then things changed. It started with the lights. I'd turn them off before bed, but in the morning, the kitchen light would be back on. Not a big deal. Maybe I forgot. But then the living room lamp started turning on too. Every night, I'd make sure all the switches were off. But still, by morning, they'd be on again. Then the footsteps came. Light ones. Barefoot. On the upstairs floor. The first night I heard them, I froze in bed. The sound moved from the hallway, past my door, and stopped at the top of the stairs. I waited. Nothing happened. When I finally got up and opened the door, no one was there. But that little door to the crawlspace? It was open. I know what you're thinking. Why didn't I leave? I don't know. Maybe I was too tired. Maybe I thought I was losing my mind and didn't want it to be real. But it got worse. One night, I was sitting on the couch when my phone lit up. A text from an unknown number. It said, "Why did you come back?" I stared at it for a long time. I hadn't given anyone my new number. I didn't reply. The next night, it happened again. This time, the message said, "Don't open the door." I was alone. Or I thought I was. At midnight, I heard the sound again, bare feet on wood. But this time, I also heard breathing. Slow. Shaky. Right outside my bedroom. I turned on the lamp. The breathing stopped. When I looked at the hallway, that crawlspace door was wide open again. I nailed it shut the next morning. 5 thick nails. I even moved a shelf in front of it. That night, I didn't sleep. At 3:13 a.m., I woke up to a loud bang. I ran into the hallway. The shelf had been knocked over. The crawlspace door was open again. But it wasn't the door that scared me. It was the photo on the floor. A printed photo. It showed me, sleeping in bed. Someone had taken it from inside the room. I called the police. A young officer named Megan came to check things out. She was kind but looked skeptical. "No signs of forced entry," she said. "Are you sure you're okay, sir?" I told her about the crawlspace. The photos. The texts. She said she'd look into it. Before she left, I asked, "Has anything ever happened here? In this house?" She paused. Then she said, "There were some reports a few years ago. A man lived here with his daughter. She disappeared. No one ever found her." After she left, I sat in the living room in the dark. I felt something watching me. The kind of feeling that crawls on your neck and makes you want to run but you can't. Then my phone lit up. Another text. She never left. That's when I heard it. The sound of small feet on the stairs. Not heavy footsteps. Light ones. Like a child. The steps came down slowly, one by one. I didn't move. A soft knock echoed from behind me on the living room wall. Not the front door. The wall. I turned slowly. A crack had formed in the paneling. From it, a tiny eye stared out. I screamed and backed away. The lights flickered. Every bulb in the house popped. The power died. I ran outside and didn't stop until I reached the neighbor's porch. The police came back the next day. Officer Megan looked shaken when she entered the crawlspace. Inside, they found dozens of photos. Of me. Taken while I was sleeping, eating, brushing my teeth. And one more thing. They found a doll. Old and cracked. Its eyes missing. Inside the doll's chest was a phone. The same number that had texted me. I moved out that week. No one ever told me what they found in the crawlspace wall, if anything. But a year later, I drove past that house again. It had burned down. The cause was unknown. Sometimes, I still get those texts. Last one I got said, "I miss you. Hey everyone. I put a lot of effort and heart into creating these videos just for you. If you're enjoying the content, I'd love to hear from you. Drop a quick comment below and let me know where you're watching from and what time it is for you right now. Your support means the world to me, and it keeps me motivated to bring more awesome videos your way. I live in a small town called Willow Creek. It's the kind of place where everyone waves at each other, where houses have front porches and dogs run freely through yards. I've lived here all my life. I work as a night officer, mostly patrolling empty streets and checking on old buildings no one uses anymore. Last fall, something happened that I still don't understand. And I've been in law enforcement for 18 years. It was late October, just after Halloween. The wind had started to turn cold. Leaves scraped across the pavement, and the streetlights flickered a little more than usual. That night, I was assigned to patrol the old East End, the part of town that no one really visits anymore. Most of it is woods and farmland now. At around 10:30 p.m., I was driving past an old farmhouse. It had been empty for at least 15 years. The paint had peeled away, and the windows were mostly boarded up. Locals say it used to belong to the Whitaker family, but no one really talks about them anymore. As I passed the house, I saw something strange. A light. Just a faint, yellow glow coming from the upstairs window. I stopped the cruiser and stared. The light was steady, not flickering like a flashlight or a candle. I waited a moment, thinking maybe it was just a trick of the moonlight or maybe someone messing around. But the light didn't go away. I got out of the car. The wind was sharp, and I could hear dry leaves crunch under my boots. The air smelled like wet wood and old earth. I slowly walked up the path, flashlight in hand, my other hand resting on my radio. "Dispatch, this is Officer Maynard," I said quietly. "There's a possible intruder at the old Whitaker place. Investigating now." They confirmed and told me to stay safe. The porch creaked loudly under my weight. The front door was still chained shut, just like always. I walked around to the side and found a broken window I could step through. Inside, the house smelled like mold and dust. It was cold. Real cold. My flashlight cut through the darkness, landing on old furniture and peeling wallpaper. I slowly made my way upstairs. Every step of the staircase groaned like it hadn't been touched in years. That's when I heard it. A soft humming. It was coming from the room with the light. I stepped closer. My heart was beating harder now. My flashlight started to flicker. I tapped it, and it steadied. I opened the door. The room was empty. Completely empty, no furniture, no broken boards, nothing. But the light was still there, glowing from a cracked lamp sitting in the far corner. It shouldn't have worked, there was no power running to this house. And that humming sound? It stopped the moment I stepped inside. I walked over to the lamp and reached to unplug it just to see if it would turn off. But there was no cord. It wasn't plugged into anything. It was just glowing. I backed away slowly. As I turned to leave the room, I caught something in the reflection of the broken glass window. A figure. Standing behind me. I spun around, flashlight raised, but no one was there. The room was still. I didn't wait any longer. I rushed downstairs, out the broken window, and back to my cruiser. I locked the doors and just sat there for a moment, breathing. I reported what I saw, but I didn't include the figure. No one would believe that part. Over the next few weeks, other officers started mentioning weird things in that part of town, lights in the woods, voices on the radio that didn't match any of our team. One guy said he heard a child calling his name when he was checking the river path. He doesn't patrol alone anymore. Eventually, the town council had the old Whitaker house boarded up completely. No one's allowed near it now. But sometimes, when I drive past late at night, I still see it. That light. In the upstairs window. Always glowing. I think about that night a lot. Who or what was in that room with me? Why was the lamp glowing when the house had no power? And why did the humming stop when I walked in? I never went back inside. I don't think I ever will. But part of me wonders if something is still waiting there. Watching. Remembering. What do you think was behind me in that room? Have you ever seen a light where there shouldn't be one? Just, if you're ever in Willow Creek, don't go down East End after dark. Not alone. My name's Jake. I used to be a sheriff's deputy in a little town called Maple Hollow. Nothing big ever really happened there. Most of my calls were for lost dogs or noise complaints. But something strange happened one night. It still keeps me up sometimes. It was a cold October evening. Wind was sharp. The air smelled like damp leaves and chimney smoke. You know that smell, right before Halloween? Like something old waking up. I was on patrol, driving the usual backroads just to stay awake. Most nights were quiet. But that night, I saw something strange at the old crossroad just past Miller's Creek. There was a man standing there. Middle of nowhere. No car. No flashlight. Just standing under the flickering streetlight like he was waiting for something. Or someone. I slowed down and rolled down my window. "You all right, sir?" I asked. He didn't move at first. Just kept staring ahead at the woods across the road. Then, real slow, he turned his head toward me. I'll never forget his face. Pale. Eyes too wide. Not scared, just empty. He smiled. It wasn't friendly. I stepped out of the cruiser. Something told me not to. But duty is duty. You need help getting somewhere? I asked. He shook his head slowly, still smiling. His voice was low and calm. She's almost here. I blinked. Who? He didn't answer. The wind picked up hard then. Leaves swirled around us. The streetlight flickered twice, then went out. Everything went dark. When it came back on a second later, he was gone. Not a sound. No footsteps. No crunching leaves. Just gone. I stood there, heart racing, flashlight shaking in my hand. I searched the edge of the woods. Nothing. I got back in my car and radioed it in. Told dispatch I saw someone, but he vanished. Probably some prank. I tried to laugh it off, but my hands wouldn't stop shaking. I went home at the end of my shift and tried to sleep. But something about the man's face kept coming back. The next day, I checked the dash cam. It showed me pulling up. Me stepping out. But there was no man in the footage. Just me, talking to nothing. I didn't know what to think. I told my friend Chris, another deputy. He thought I was messing with him. That night, I drove back to the crossroad. Just to prove to myself it was real. Same spot. Same flickering light. No one there. I waited. About an hour passed before I decided to leave. But just as I reached for the ignition, I saw her. A woman this time. Standing exactly where the man had been. Same place. Same pose. Except she looked wet. Her clothes were soaked. Hair stuck to her face. Her skin was pale like she'd been out in the rain for hours. But it wasn't raining. I got out again, slowly. "Ma'am, are you okay?" I called out. She looked at me, eyes wide, lips trembling. "He's coming," she whispered. Then she screamed. Loud and sharp, like it came from her gut. And then, she was gone. Same as before. The light flickered, then nothing. I ran to the spot, yelling for her. Just like before, no footprints, no sounds. That night, I didn't sleep at all. Over the next week, more people in town started reporting weird things at that crossroad. A farmer said he saw a girl crying in the middle of the road. When he stopped to help, no one was there. Someone else said they saw lights dancing in the woods behind the stop sign. People started avoiding the road after dark. I did some digging. Turns out, back in the 1970s, there was a crash there. A couple, newly engaged, hit a tree head-on during a storm. The man died instantly. The woman wandered into the woods and was found a day later, barefoot, eyes wide, saying he's still out there. She died in the hospital a week later. Since then, every few decades, folks report seeing a man or a woman at that very spot. Always at night. Always near October. I don't work in law enforcement anymore. Moved a few towns over. Got married, had a daughter. Try not to think about that place. But sometimes, on cold, windy nights, when the house is quiet, I think I hear tapping at the window. Like fingers brushing the glass. And every once in a while, when I drive past an old road at dusk, I look twice at any figure near a streetlight. Just in case. When I moved to Pine Hollow, I was looking for quiet. After my wife passed, the city felt too loud. Too crowded. Too full of memories. I just wanted space to breathe. So, I bought a small house near the edge of town. It sat at the end of Sycamore Road, right before the woods began. It was old. The floors creaked when I walked. The walls groaned at night. The streetlight outside flickered more often than it stayed on. But I didn't mind. I told myself I liked the stillness. The first week was peaceful. I unpacked slowly. I sat on the porch most nights, watching the fog roll in from the trees. The air always smelled like damp leaves and cold earth. It reminded me of fall, even though it was spring. One night, I was sitting in the living room, scrolling through my phone, when I heard a knock at the door. Not loud. Just 3 slow taps. I got up and opened it. No one was there. I stepped outside. The fog had thickened. The streetlight buzzed and blinked, but gave little light. I looked up and down the road. Nothing. I went back in, thinking maybe I'd imagined it. The next night, it happened again. Same time. Same knock. Again, no one. By the third night, I was feeling uneasy. I didn't tell anyone. What would I say? Hey, I think someone's knocking on my door and vanishing? People would think grief had finally cracked me. So, I tried to ignore it. But then I started hearing noises inside the house. Soft footsteps upstairs when I was downstairs. The sound of drawers sliding open. Once, I heard something like humming in the hallway. A woman's voice, low and slow. I froze, heart pounding, and it stopped as quickly as it started. I started keeping a flashlight by my bed. I checked every room before going to sleep. I even set up an old baby monitor I found in one of the moving boxes. I put the receiver next to my bed, and the transmitter in the upstairs hallway. That night, I woke up at 2:17 a.m. The monitor crackled. Then, I heard breathing. Soft. Slow. Right next to the mic upstairs. I didn't move. I just listened. My skin went cold. Then, a whisper, "He doesn't belong here." The voice was close. Too close. I didn't sleep the rest of the night. When the sun finally rose, I packed up the monitor and shoved it in a drawer. Later that day, I asked the cashier at the gas station about the house. She gave me a strange look. "You're in the gray house on Sycamore?" she asked. I nodded. She hesitated, then leaned in. "There used to be a woman there. Lived alone after her daughter died. People said she went strange. Kept the girl's room exactly the same. Even talked to her like she was still alive. What happened to her? No one knows. One day she just stopped coming into town. A neighbor checked on her, but the house was empty. Door wide open. They never found her. I tried to brush it off. Old towns have old stories. That night, I told myself to grow up and stop letting shadows get to me. But something had changed in the house. I'd walk into a room and the lamp would already be on. The hallway would feel colder than the rest of the house. I started hearing the humming more often, always the same slow tune. Sometimes I'd wake up to the sound of crying. Then came the dreams. In one, I was standing in the upstairs hallway. A little girl was at the end of it, her back to me. She turned, but her face was blurry, like static on a TV. She said, "Don't let her in." I woke up soaked in sweat. A few nights later, I heard footsteps on the stairs. I sat up in bed, holding the flashlight. The door creaked open slowly. I aimed the light, nothing. But the flashlight flickered. Then died. And in the dark, I heard the humming again. Closer now. I whispered, "Who's there?" No answer. Then, from just beside the bed, this was my room. I jumped up, grabbed my phone, and turned on the flashlight. The room was empty. I slept with the lights on after that. A few days later, I decided I couldn't stay. I packed what I could fit in my truck and drove to a motel on the other side of town. Before I left, I stood in the doorway one last time. The air was still. Quiet. I whispered, "I'm sorry," not even sure who I was talking to. As I turned to leave, the front door, on its own, began to slowly shut. No wind. No draft. Just closing. I didn't wait to watch it shut all the way. I never went back to that house. Some nights, though, even now, I hear humming outside my motel window. Soft and slow. I tell myself it's just my mind playing tricks. But sometimes, I wonder if she followed me. Have you ever lived somewhere that didn't feel empty, even when it was? What do you think she meant when she said, "Don't let her in"? Hey everyone! I put a lot of effort and heart into creating these videos just for you. If you're enjoying the content, I'd love to hear from you. Drop a quick comment below and let me know where you're watching from and what time it is for you right now. Your support means the world to me, and it keeps me motivated to bring more awesome videos your way. It was just after midnight when Officer Mark Ellis got the call. Oak Ridge was a quiet little town in Pennsylvania. The kind of place where the loudest noise came from the train that no longer ran. Mark had worked the night shift for 12 years. Nothing much ever happened. But something about this call felt wrong. The voice on the radio was shaky. Dispatch to Unit 4, we're getting static on the old line. From the station. The one that's been shut down since 2002. Mark paused. The Oak Ridge train station had been closed for over a decade. No power. No phone. No reason anyone should be there. Still, he responded. Copy that. I'll check it out. He grabbed his flashlight, pulled on his jacket, and drove through the foggy streets. The town was asleep. Only the soft hum of his cruiser filled the silence. The old station sat at the edge of town, just past the creek. It was a crumbling brick building with broken windows and weeds growing through the steps. Mark had been inside once, years ago. It gave him the creeps then. It still did now. He parked out front. The wind made the nearby trees creak. His boots crunched on gravel as he approached. The air smelled like damp wood and rust. The door was already open. That wasn't right. He stepped inside. The wooden floor moaned under his weight. His flashlight beam danced across faded posters and shattered glass. The ticket window stood empty. Dust floated through the air like snow. Then he heard it. Click. It came from the dispatcher's room. A sound like an old phone button being pressed. He moved slowly, the beam of light trembling in his grip. The door to the radio room was cracked open. He pushed it gently. There, on the desk, sat an old rotary phone. Beige. Cracked. Its cord was tangled. It rang. Mark froze. It rang again. Loud. Sharp. Clear. He stepped back. No power. No service. This phone shouldn't even be connected. It rang a third time. He picked it up. Hello? Static filled the line. Then, a voice. Faint. Female. Help, please. I can't find my way out. Who is this? Mark asked. Where are you? No answer. Just heavy breathing. Then. He's here. The line went dead. Mark stood there, heart pounding. The room suddenly felt cold. He backed away from the phone and turned to leave. That's when the hallway light flickered. There was no electricity in the building. He pointed his flashlight forward and saw something move past the door. A shadow. It wasn't fast. It wasn't human. It glided. He pulled out his gun and called in, but his radio was nothing but static. The same static he heard on the phone. He stepped into the hallway. The air felt heavier now. Like breathing through a wet cloth. The hallway stretched longer than he remembered. Doors that had been boarded up were now wide open. One led to the old waiting area. Wooden benches, empty soda machines, and dusty luggage lined the room. Then he heard it again. A whisper. Mark. He turned. Nothing. Mark. The voice came from behind him. He spun around. Still nothing. He was sweating. His hands trembled. Then, in the far corner of the waiting room, something stood in the dark. It looked like a man. But too tall. Its arms hung low. The face wasn't a face at all. Just smooth, pale skin like wax. Mark stepped back. It stepped forward. He ran. Out the hallway. Through the entrance. Back into the night. But something was wrong. The door that was once open was now closed. The windows were covered in thick black grime. The air outside was gone. No wind. No sound. Even the fog had stopped moving. He reached for his phone. No signal. He turned to the door, gripped the handle, and pulled. It opened. He ran outside. The air hit him like a slap. Cold. Sharp. Real. He turned around to look at the station one last time. All the lights were off. The phone inside didn't ring again. Back at the station, the dispatcher met him with wide eyes. "What did you see?" she asked. Mark hesitated. "I don't know," he said. "But there was someone in there. Someone who doesn't want to be found, or forgotten." They looked at the call logs. Nothing. No record of any call from the old station. Just static. Mark never took another night shift again. He moved out of Oak Ridge the following spring. But sometimes, when the wind hits just right, and you drive near the edge of town, you can see the station lights flicker back on. And if you listen closely, you might just hear the phone ring. My name is Daniel Hayes. I've lived in Mill Creek, Oregon, all my life. It's a quiet little town. Not much happens here. A couple of bars, one diner, and a police station that barely sees any real action. I work night patrol. It's lonely, but I like the silence. Or, at least, I used to. This happened 2 years ago. Late October. Right before Halloween. There's an old road out near the woods. Locals call it Lantern Lane. No one really uses it anymore. It used to lead to an old sawmill, but that burned down years ago. Now it's just trees, dirt, and broken fences. I was on patrol that night. Cold air, fog rolling in. The streetlights flickered like they were trying to stay awake. My radio was quiet. I remember smelling the rain coming. Wet leaves and cold bark. That kind of smell you don't forget. At 2:13 a.m., I saw it. A single light. Deep in the woods. Just past Lantern Lane. It was small, soft, like someone holding a lantern. I stopped my car. Turned off the engine. Rolled down the window. I expected to hear footsteps. Twigs breaking. Something. But there was no sound. Just wind. I stepped out with my flashlight and walked toward the trees. The air got colder with each step. My boots crunched the dead leaves. The light stayed still. No movement. At one point, I called out. Mill Creek Police. Anyone out here? No answer. Just silence. The kind that makes your skin feel too tight. I kept walking. The light faded in and out like it was blinking. I finally reached a small clearing. There was no one there. But my flashlight hit something. A small, rusted lantern sitting on a tree stump. Still glowing. No flame. Just light. Like it was alive. I bent down, reached for it, but the moment my hand got close, it went out. Sudden darkness. I froze. That's when I heard the girl. A soft whisper behind me. Please don't leave me. I spun around, shining my light in every direction. Nothing. Not even footprints in the mud. I called out again. Is someone hurt? No reply. I stood there, heart pounding. I faced down drunks, wild dogs, even a guy with a knife once. But this was different. This felt wrong. I slowly backed away, flashlight shaking in my hand. I got in my car and left. I didn't sleep that morning. I couldn't. The next night, I went back. I had to. I needed to know what I saw. Same time. Same place. 2:13 a.m. Same light in the woods. But this time, I brought a body cam. I parked, got out, and started walking again. This time, the lantern was swinging like someone was holding it. When I reached the stump, it was there again. Lit. Warm glow. No flame. Then, the voice again. Please don't leave me. This time, I caught movement. A figure. Small. Female. Just beyond the trees. I followed her. She wore a white dress. Her hair looked wet. She moved slow, almost floating. I kept calling out, but she never answered. I followed her until we reached the ruins of the sawmill. It was barely standing. Black walls, half-burned wood, a hole where the roof used to be. She disappeared into the building. I didn't want to follow. But I did. Inside, it was cold. So cold, my breath looked like smoke. My flashlight flickered. Then I saw her. Standing in the center of the room. Staring at something. I stepped closer. The floor creaked under my boots. That's when I saw what she was looking at. A photo. Burnt around the edges. Nailed to the wall. It showed a family. 2 parents, 1 child. The girl in the photo looked like her. Then she turned to me. Her eyes dark, hollow. "Help me," she said. And then she vanished. No scream. No flash. Just gone. My flashlight died. My body cam glitched. Everything went dark. I stumbled out, shaking. I didn't sleep for days. When I reviewed the footage, most of it was static. Except for one frame. One clear frame. The photo. That family. And written across it, in ash-gray letters, "She's still waiting." I tried to forget. I really did. But every year, on October 28th, the same light appears in the woods. Always at 2:13 a.m. And sometimes, late at night, the radio crackles. A child's voice whispering, "Please don't leave me." Hollow Pine is the kind of place most people drive through without stopping. One main road, some houses tucked behind pine trees, and a diner that closes by 8. I grew up there. I used to think it was boring. But after what happened last November, I realized boring is better than haunted. It started a few weeks after my dad passed. He had been the town electrician for 30 years. Always on call, always fixing things no one else wanted to climb up a pole for. When he died, I moved back home to take care of Mom. The grief hit her hard. She barely left her room. I took a job as a night security officer for the town's maintenance department. It wasn't much, just driving around, checking on buildings, and logging the condition of the power grid. One of my tasks was checking the old streetlights that lined the stretch of road heading out of town. Most had been updated, but one hadn't. It was the last original pole, tall and wooden, with a dull orange bulb that flickered on its own time. Locals joked about it. Called it the haunted lamp. My dad used to say it had a mind of its own. I thought it was just old wiring. Then one night, something changed. It was late. Cold winds swept through the trees. The kind of cold that finds its way into your bones. I was finishing my last route. I turned onto Ridge Road and slowed near the old streetlight. It was off. That wasn't unusual, it flickered a lot. But as I drove by, it blinked on. Then off. Then on again. I stopped the car. The light stayed on this time. It cast a soft, shaky glow over the empty road and the trees swaying in the wind. I stepped out of the car. My boots crunched on the frost-covered gravel. I walked up to the pole. There was something strange about the air. Still. Too still. I couldn't even hear the wind anymore. Then, under the soft light, I saw footprints. Bare feet. Small. Like a child's. The prints were in the frost, fresh and sharp. But there were no other cars around. No houses nearby. Just woods and quiet. I followed them for a few steps, then stopped. A shape moved across the road behind me. I turned fast. Nothing there. I walked back to the car, heart thudding. As I opened the door, I heard a whisper. Very soft. Hello? It was a child's voice. I turned. The road was empty. Is someone there? I called. No answer. The light flickered again. Then it went out completely. I sat in my car for a while before driving off. The next day, I logged a repair order for the light. 2 nights later, I got the same route again. Ridge Road. Same light. This time, I brought a flashlight. As I approached, the light was already on. Steady this time. No flicker. I pulled over again, this time leaving the engine running. Then I noticed something odd. The power box at the base of the pole had been opened. Not all the way, just a little. Like someone had tried to mess with it. I crouched down. That's when I heard it again. Hello? Same voice. Soft. Young. Like it was right behind me. I stood up quickly and turned around. There was a little girl standing under the light. She wore a white dress. Thin, not right for the cold. Her hair was long and dark. I couldn't see her face clearly. Are you okay? I asked. She didn't respond. I took a step closer. My flashlight flickered, then died. When the beam came back, she was gone. I looked around wildly. Nothing. No sound. No footsteps. Just the cold. I got in the car and left fast. Back at the station, I checked the repair logs. My dad's name was listed on the light he'd done the last manual fix 2 years ago. The note read, "Refuses to stay fixed. Girl keeps showing up. No record of missing child. Leaving it alone." That made my stomach twist. Why hadn't he ever told me? I asked my mom the next morning. She got quiet. There was a little girl hit by a car there, she said. Years ago. Before we moved to Hollow Pine. Folks say she never left. I didn't believe in ghosts. Not really. But that night made me rethink things. I requested a new patrol route. Avoided Ridge Road. But last week, I was driving home late from the grocery store. As I passed the edge of town, I saw that light. It was off again. Then, just as I passed, it flicked on. And for a second, in the rearview mirror, I saw her. The little girl. Just standing under the light, facing the woods. I didn't stop. I haven't been down Ridge Road since. But sometimes, at night, I swear I hear a small knock on my front door. Always around the same time. Always followed by a flicker in the porch light.